Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Jimmy John's pregame show as we get you set for another presentation of men's basketball here on the Capital Sports Network. I'm Charlie Danis, joined in the broadcast booth by my broadcast partner, Jimmy Bloomfield. And Jimmy, it took us a little while, but we are finally into the month of February, the stretch run, so to speak. And for the men's team here at Capital, they're just looking to put a rough January behind them and try to finish strong as they continue to inch closer and closer to the OAC tournament.
Yeah, we were looking at the standings and the schedule the rest of the year, and it's becoming more and more clear that we're probably going to fall, if we do make the tournament, somewhere in that 5 to 8 range. There's still an outside chance at getting back into the top 4. Mount Union has found themselves at 6-6 in conference play. So Capital's still just a game back there, but the schedule does not get easier. This is a game that they really got to get before they go on the road against two of the top 3 teams with Marietta and Mount Union, so 2 of the top 4 teams there. So it's going to be tough for them, but if they can steal that Mount Union game on the road, there is an inside shot at getting one of the top 4 seeds in the tournament. So there still is a lot to play for. But especially with the men's team right now, it's just finding that consistency. That was what we talked a lot about on Saturday. They played an amazing second half, scoring 51 points on Ohio Northern, but they put themselves in such a gigantic hole that they weren't able to complete the comeback.
Ohio Northern ends up defeating Capital 75-71. As Jimmy mentioned, Capital had to try to dig themselves out of a big hole after halftime. They were down 40-20 after the first half against the Polar Bears. They end up outscoring Ohio Northern 51-35. Tremendous game for Tyrell Jackson from a point standpoint. He had 17 points, but only 6 of 13 from the field and 2 of 7 from three-point range. Meanwhile, Jimmy, Ohio Northern, I think, showed both of us why they are a team to be reckoned with within the OAC. They had 4 players in double figures in scoring. They were led by Joey DeOrio. This team can score on you in a myriad of ways.
Yeah, and Devin Allen hit 4 threes for them. They scored 9 total three-pointers in the game on 18 shot attempts, so obviously 50% there. Anytime they had just that little tiny opening, Charlie, they were able to knock down a tough, or not even tough shots, just wide open threes. And even if the hand was in the face just a couple seconds late, it didn't matter. One of the best teams that we saw just knocking down shots, especially in that first half. And just momentary lapses in focus on defense really kind of did them in because, you know, they'd be late on a switch or late on getting around a screen or just anything, even if they just looked like they were going to pull up a shot and they just didn't respect the three because it was from deep away. They've got an amazing ability to knock down outside shots, does Ohio Northern. That's why they're a little bit different than Marietta and John Carroll. It wasn't as nearly of a physical game as it was against those 2 teams. So they kind of bring a different style as well. They've got a brand new head coach as well. So they're a tough matchup, and I think Capital really, they figured it out, obviously, in the second half. But they just, that one stretch in the middle of that first half, defensively, they got a little bit lax. It allowed Ohio Northern to open up a big lead. Capital came right out of the locker room and fixed everything, but the problem was it took them so long to get to that point. It's just it goes to show you the OAC, you're going to see a different kind of matchup every day. And again, today against Heidelberg, a different kind of team than we're used to seeing as well. So it's just tough to play in this conference night in, night out. You got a different kind of matchup to worry about. It's not like every team plays the same kind of style.
Capital ends up going 2-6 within the month of January, but they will try to turn things around here during the month of February as they play host to Heidelberg. We'll have much more coming up on the Jimmy John's pregame show after these messages.
Planks is on the web at plankscafe.com or available by
Welcome back to the Jimmy John's pregame show. Getting you set for tonight's men's basketball matchup between Capital and Heidelberg. Alongside Jimmy Bloomfield, I'm Charlie Danis. Let's now go ahead and take a look around the Ohio Athletic Conference. This OAC update is brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs and Sandwiches. A quick look at the games that will be played this evening. Baldwin-Wallace playing host to Ohio Northern. Otterbein, they are on the road tonight. They are taking on the Blue Streaks at John Carroll. Wilmington will be on the road as well as they take on the Muskies at Muskingum. And finally, Mount Union playing host to the Pioneers of Marietta. I am sure that is going to be a very high-scoring affair up in Alliance. The standings on the men's side of the OAC look like this. Marietta and Ohio Northern, they are tied atop the standings with equal 10-2 marks within conference play. John Carroll right behind with a 9-3 mark. And then a steep drop-off when it comes to records. I don't know about talent, but certainly records. Mount Union 6-6 within the conference. Three-way tie between Muskingum, Capital, and Heidelberg within the middle of the conference. Baldwin-Wallace 4-8. And then Wilmington and Otterbein, they both bring up the rear with equal 3 and 9 marks. Jimmy, you brought up the really important point that Mount Union is much more talented than their 6-6 record within conference play indicates, and I would tend to agree with you. I think they belong in that same group of John Carroll, Ohio Northern, and Marietta. So we kind of know who the top four teams are in the OAC. However, there's still a lot to be sorted out within the middle of the conference.
Yeah, and if you take a look at the schedule for Mount Union at Wilmington tonight, you mentioned they have one game against Marietta at home. That's going to be on Wednesday, actually. And then the rest of the season is against the teams in the bottom half of the conference. So that's why that's potentially a 6-6 record, because they've played against the top teams a lot. Even if they lose that Marietta game, that would give them 7 conference losses. They'll probably win out the rest of the way, honestly, with how talented they are. And you might see another team from the top 3, because Ohio Northern, Marietta, and John Carroll all are going to play against each other again. You might see another team drop down to maybe 5 or 6 losses and be in that same group with Mount Union. So it is a deceiving 6-6, considering the schedule that they've played to this point. They play a lot of the big boys the first time through conference play, and then at the early parts whenever they go through. So even on the second swing, we see them playing against those teams again, and that's why they're down there. Individually, they've got some of the best players in the conference. De'Allen Jackson leading this conference in scoring. It's actually a really good battle right now for the top scoring in the conference, the scoring title, I guess you should call it, between 4 players. Kakura, one of his teammates, is right behind him at 0.7 behind in 4th place. You got Jarrell Marsh at Muskingum. We've talked a lot about him.
Yep.
And then A.J. Edwards is probably my favorite to win the Conference Player of the Year. We saw him put on a show here as well. So I think it's going to be a fun little – if you're into that kind of thing like I am and tracking who's going to win the Conference Player of the Year and things like that, it's going to be a really good race, including the scoring title. I think because record becomes a part of that conversation, like an MVP discussion, I think A.J. Edwards has the upper hand right now. But we could see a really good battle between Jarrell Marsh, him, and Jackson and Kakura for who's going to be that leading scorer in the conference.
You know, I was actually going to ask you about that, because we're so far into the season that, yes, you have to start talking about who's the player of the year, freshman of the year, coach of the year. So you've already talked about some players here, player of the year. If you had to pick out a freshman that we have seen or a young guy, who would you pick out?
I'm trying to think of some that come to mind. In terms of coach of the year, at least, I can tell you that Ohio Northern's coach has definitely got my vote. We've seen what he did with that team. It was under 500 last year even. I think they finished 7-9 in conference play, and look at basically the same exact roster that they've had before, and all of a sudden it's one of the best teams in the conference. So it's kind of crazy. In terms of freshman of the year, I mean, I can't even think of one that's really stuck out to me. There's been a couple of underclassmen that have really performed well, including some guys from Muskingum.
Well, let's face it, the OAC is heavily dominant when it comes to upperclassmen contributors.
Yeah, I mean, look at some of the names. Those 4 names I already mentioned, Cam Kuhn as well, David Lenane. These are all names that have been around the OAC for quite a while. Keith Richardson as well from Marietta. He's kind of having a resurgent year.
David Lenane.
Devin Allen from Ohio Northern. Kacharowicz from John Carroll as well. So we've seen a Nate Berger from Ohio Northern in the top 20. So we've seen a lot of these names before. I don't really know. When you put me on the spot trying to come up with a freshman of the year, no one has really stuck out to me, to be honest.
Let's now go ahead and take a look at the Capital Corner, brought to you by the Rusty Bucket. The men's team, not the only team from Capital in action tonight. The women's team, they are on the road. They are at Heidelberg this evening. And It was actually a very successful January for Dixie Jeffers' crew. They went 5-3 during the month of January. Unfortunately, they ended on a low note with a 64-49 loss to Ohio Northern. And Jimmy, let's face it, you got to give the Polar Bears their due. Over the last couple of years, they have been the powerhouses when it comes to women's basketball within the OAC.
Yeah, it was a really competitive game, too. I thought the women had a chance to come away with that game. They were hanging in there, and kind of like the game here at home. Ohio Northern just kind of had the upper hand all day. In terms of the halftime score, I mean, if you look at the fourth quarter and how they just closed out that game with a 13-point differential, 23-10, and that's where you get that 15-point differential. But it was a 2-point game going into the fourth quarter. Britt Locke was very off, 5 of 18 shooting. She was not efficient at all in the first half, especially, and that was part of the reason that Capital was able to stay in the game, because of the defense that Annika Watchman did on her, and then Watchman had a nice game herself. The team's going to go as far as Watchman can take them. I think that's what we've seen, Charlie, the difference last month and even the last 2 weeks especially. We've seen what Annika Watchman means to this team, how big she is, and I think she's going to be the key for the rest of the season if she's able to continue her high play and get contributions from around her. Emily Ondo is probably the top offensive threat on the team now, which has been a pleasant surprise, and she's even giving them some outside shooting, which is a nice change from things that we saw earlier in the season. So I think the women's team in much better shape than we thought a month ago. They still got kind of a long way to go here, but they're only a game back of that 4 spot, and it's really big on the women's side. We talked about the tournament's a little bit different setup. It's not your traditional 1 versus 8, 2 versus 7, etc. There's a lot of buys built in. If you get the top 5, you have a buy into the quarterfinals of the tournament. So they really need to get that 4 seed. Otherwise, if you're a 5 seed, you got to go at home on Monday. Then you go on the road Tuesday. If you win, you go on the road again Thursday, and then a 4th game in 6 days on Saturday. So it is a really tough for a team in the bottom 5 through 8 range to get a conference title in the OAC tournament. So that 4 spot, definitely what Capital is working towards on the women's side, and Annika Watchman the key there.
When we come back, we will go ahead and set the table for Capital and Heidelberg, getting set for some men's basketball here at the Capital Center. You're listening to the Jimmy John's pregame show.
This is a message for the nurses among us, for those who dream of saving lives, for those who are driven to improve care, and for those ready to help heal what's broken, be it a single bone fracture or an entire hospital system. Capital University's advanced nursing programs are built for you. Engaged faculty, immersive learning, and intimate classes where you'll know everyone's name. To learn more, visit capital.edu/nursing. Advanced nursing at Capital University, for those driven to do more.
Welcome back to the Jimmy John's pregame show. Let's now go ahead and set the table for Capital. This is brought to you by Pepsi. Live for now. As we mentioned, Capital coming off of a frustrating loss to Ohio Northern, concluded a month of January in which Capital went 2-6. But rest assured, Cap fans, it's a new month, a fresh start for Capital. Although, Jimmy, they got a lot of work to do going forward if they want to have a good seed in the OAC tournament.
Yeah, and we talked about this. The 5-8 is really the target spot probably for Capital. They still have one more matchup with Mount Union, and theoretically they could win that game and get right back into the conversation for the 4th spot. But Mount Union has a much easier schedule, as we've talked about, and I think a more realistic situation is we're going to be somewhere 5-8, and it really doesn't matter where we are 5-8. We're going to be playing a high-quality team on the road, and if we win that game, we're going to play another high-quality team on the road. So it doesn't really matter. If it's Marietta, Ohio Northern, John Carroll, and if you ask me, I think we match up maybe a little bit better with Ohio Northern based on that second half that we had against them and the physicality that Marietta and and John Carroll bring to the table, and Mount Union as well to that regard. Ohio Northern, much more of a jump shooting team. You could catch them on a cold night kind of thing. But I really don't think Capital is really looking at who they want to play in the top 3 or anything like that. They've got to right the ship here. We've got a really good team that can play really good basketball for spurts of minutes, and then there's another spurts where they can't seem to buy a basket. They get really lazy on the defensive end of the floor, and they don't bring that intensity on defense that is really what makes them thrive. It starts on the defensive end of the floor for Capital. So I think this next month here in February, they've got, 6 games left. They've got to figure out a way to get a consistent 40 minutes, if that means subbing more, subbing less, tinkering with the rotation, playing different players with each other. Whatever it is, it's going to make a difference for this team. It seems like it's gone a little bit stagnant at this point, and I think they kind of need someone to inject some fuel into them, kind of like Auble did when they put him into the starting lineup. We saw a big change in Capital's production. And recently we haven't had that, Charlie. I don't know if it's – I really don't know what the answer is, and hopefully Coach can play with it and figure out what can make this team go for a consistent 40 minutes and stop burying ourselves in these games. We've had some massive second halves this season, and sometimes it's resulting in wins, but other times, we dig ourselves in a 20-point hole, and it's hard to climb out of those.
Let's now go ahead and set the table for Heidelberg, brought to you by Capital Dining Services. Jimmy, you look at Heidelberg, and their main strength are their guards. Kiera Benny averaging 15.5 points per game, 13.6 per game for Chris Moxley, and 11.6 points per game for Myron Pruitt. Clearly, the backcourt for Heidelberg has been a strength for the Student Princes all year long.
Yeah, it sure has, and they're a very similar team to Capital in that they're not going to blow you away with high scoring. They're going to try to play a game that's lower scoring as well. We looked at the first game between these teams. They played a 59-53 game, and it was another game in which Capital got off to a slow start against Heidelberg. They were down by 7 at half and then outscored them by 13 in the second half. But Benny had 12 in that game. Moxley had 11. DeAvery Collins coming off the bench also chipped in with 12 points. So a lot of their production did come from those guys that you just named, Charlie, and they're leading scorers. So it was kind of a basic game that we thought we would get out of Heidelberg. They did not shoot the ball particularly well from 3, 33%, 6 for 18. So we don't really have to worry about that outside threat outside of a couple of players on the team. And overall, they shot just 36% in the game. These two teams are both in the top 5 in terms of their defense against defensive field goal percentage against. They're both in the top 3, actually, in the conference. Capital at 42%, Heidelberg at 43.2%. The big difference in the defense, Charlie, is that Capital, from three-point range, allows teams to shoot just 33%, where Heidelberg allows teams to shoot 37%. So their exterior defense not as good as they are inside. They're a very good interior defense, much like Capital is. The difference could be that three-point line today.
Also, a difference tonight, Jimmy, could be the play inside. Mike Mason is a 6'8" junior for Heidelberg, hails from the Cleveland, Ohio area. Meanwhile, Tyler Jamison, we've seen him have good games for Capital. We've seen him have not so good games for Capital. How do you see that battle shaking out tonight?
Yeah, Mason is a very similar player to Jamison in that they're both known more for their defensive side. as I was just talking about with the interior defense as opposed to the offensive side. But we saw a fun little stretch in that Ohio Northern game where Tyler Jamison really got going offensively. We saw every kind of post move that he knew working against the 6'8" Ryan
he was
Bruns.
putting on a clinic.
Yeah, and it was fun because then Bruns was posting up on him on the other side, and it was a nice little one-on-one game between the big men. I would give Jamison the advantage here tonight, but it's going to be really interesting because Mason is a very good defender inside. Again, a big body down low that we have to go up against another 6'8" center. So it's not going to be an easy day for Tyler Jamison. We were talking about freshman of the year in the pregame and just looking around at some other teams. I mean, Jamison and Auble probably in that conversation just based mostly on how much they play for Capital.
Exactly.
There's not a lot of freshmen that get a lot of minutes around the conference, and Heidelberg, like many other teams, doesn't really play a lot of freshmen in their rotation. They do play Malik Quisenberry, who is one of their leading scorers at what is it? Excuse me, I was reading the wrong line there. He has played in 15 games, but he really hasn't done much for him, and that's basically the only freshman on their roster that plays. So just looking at that standpoint, I mean, it's going to be fun tonight. Heidelberg hasn't really seen Tyler Jamison. They've seen him in one game, obviously, earlier in the year. Jamison, I think, is a much different player offensively than he was then. And even in that game against Heidelberg, he had 15 points and 6 rebounds. So he definitely won that matchup last time around. And Mike Mason was more of a bench player for Heidelberg at that point. We see him having 14 starts in 19 games. So he was another player that was kind of slow to get up into where he is at this point of the season. So that's a big matchup. That's a good thing that you point that out, Charlie. It's going to be really interesting to see where Mike Mason's game has progressed and if they can kind of limit Tyler Jamison because he really killed him last time.
Finally, Jimmy, keys of the game brought to you by the Marriott Columbus Airport. What does Capital have to do to get off on the right foot here in February?
No, I think, that, like I said, the key word today is going to be consistency in playing a full 40 minutes. I think, especially during that stretch, I keep going back to it, in the middle of the first half, and I hate to pick on him because I really like the way he plays, but Ganahu Yahaya looked really lost on the defensive end of the floor last game out. He only played 9 minutes. As a result, coach would throw him out there. He'd make some plays on the offensive side of the floor, but then he would lose an assignment on defense, and against a team like Ohio Northern, it's a quick strike offense. Bam, there's 8 points on the board before you know it. So that was just one example. I don't mean to pick on Yahaya or anything like that, but just stretches like that where there's lapses in their defense, or maybe they just come down the court and settle for bad shots. We've seen that a lot too, Charlie. So just getting rid of that and just playing good basketball, I think, is the top key right now. I think the three-point line is a place of weakness for Heidelberg that Capital can attack. We've seen they have plenty of shooters from outside, and they were really trying to create shots for their shooters at the start of that game against Ohio Northern. They weren't falling. They went away from it. So maybe they go back to that route again. Tyrell Jackson was really quiet in the first half, ended up with, I think, 17 or 19 points in that game because he just started ripping it from three when they needed to come back quickly at the end of that game, and he got really hot. So we saw that he's very streaky. Weingartner's knocked down at times a couple of shots in back-to-back possessions too. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them attack the perimeter against Heidelberg, especially early, try to build up a big lead against them. And then third, like you said, Charlie, that matchup down low, Mason is a much different player. He only played 11 minutes against Capital in that first game. He came in off the bench in that game. Now he's a big-time player for them, averaging 16 minutes per game. So obviously the average was dragged down by how much he didn't play at the start of the year, and he's now getting his way into that starting lineup. It is going to be really interesting tonight to see what he brings to the table. A guy from St. Ed's, a very good basketball program out of Cleveland. So I think that's going to be your big key as well. The interior defense from both teams is a strength. Let's see if Capital can attack the outside perimeter while still keeping Tyler Jamison involved.
We got a matchup between Cap and the Berg, a matchup between the purple and white and the red, orange, and black. Should be a fun one here at the Capital Center as Heidelberg gets set to take on Capital. We'll be back in just a moment, and when we come back, we'll get you the starting lineups and the opening tip-off here at Bexley. This is the Jimmy John's pregame show, leading you right into another presentation of Crusaders men's basketball on the Capital Sports Network. Let's now send it down to the public address announcer, Neil Shapiro.
Gentlemen, it is time to honor America. Would you please rise for the playing of our national anthem?
Let's now get you tonight's starting lineups brought to you by Dill's Greenhouse. Only nature does it better. First, the starting five for the Student Princes of Heidelberg University. At center will be the 6'8" junior from Cleveland, Ohio, number 1, Mike Mason. At guard will be the 6'1" junior from Cincinnati, Ohio, number 4, Kier Benny. Also at guard will be the 6' senior from Columbus, Ohio, number 13, DeAvery Collins. At forward will be the 6'5" sophomore from Cleveland, Ohio, number 23, Myron Pruitt. And rounding out the starting five for the Student Princes will be the 5'10" junior guard from Columbus, Ohio, number 25, Chris Moxley. The head coach of the Student Princes in his 4th year at Heidelberg, Andy Buhai. And now the starting five for the Crusaders of Capital University. At guard will be the 6'3" sophomore from Erlanger, Kentucky, number 3, Austin Schreck. Also at guard will be the 6' freshman from Brecksville, Ohio, number 13, Dan Abel. Also at guard will be the 6'2" senior from Dublin, Ohio, number 23, Tyrell Jackson. At forward will be the 6'7" freshman from Columbus, Ohio, number 33, Nate Boone. And rounding out the starting five for the Crusaders this evening will be the 6'6" freshman center from Strongsville, Ohio, number 45, Tyler Jamison. The head coach of the Crusaders in his 22nd year here at Capital, that would be Damon Goodwin. Capital wearing their customary white jerseys and white shorts with purple piping on the side, purple numbers, and white letters on the front of the jersey. Meanwhile, Heidelberg, they like to use orange and black in their color scheme, and they actually have some nifty looking uniforms tonight with some orange piping down the side of the shorts and the jerseys. The collars of the jerseys are bright orange, and they are black numbers and black letters outlined by orange, kind of a neon look.
I hate to say it, but they have got the coolest uniforms in the conference, I think. I mean, Capital has got more of that traditional old school look for sure, but Heidelberg is kind of like the Oregon of our conference. They've got the newer age uniforms for sure, even though they're Under Armour, not Nike.
Opening tip brought to you by Zoe's Cafe. Jamison will jump with Mike Mason. That ought to be a fascinating matchup in the post tonight as the 6'6" Jamison goes up against the 6'8" Mason. Ball is up in the air, tipped, and it is going to be out of bounds, and they are going to give it to Capital.
Very aggressive tip back there by Mason. I don't think I can recall the last time I've seen an opening tip get pushed out of bounds like that.
Kier Benny gave chase for it for Heidelberg, but he thought it was off of Capital. So now Capital will get the first crack at it here on offense as we are just underway here at the Capital Center. Heidelberg and Capital duking it out the first day of February. Can you believe that we have already gotten to the month of February? Jamison will spin move, obble, jumple. That's no good as it'll go out of bounds, and they will keep it with White. Jamison was employing a little bit of that nifty.
Yeah, we saw him get a bucket off that Rondo fake. I don't know what else to call it, where he sticks the ball out, goes the other way with it.
They get it into Jamison successfully.
Heidelberg's defensive matchups, they look lost almost. They've got a lot of mismatches just guarding the wrong people, it seems like. Jamison right now has a mismatch as Mason's on Boone right now.
Boone trying to work against Mason. Twisting, turning, bouncing it over to Jamison. Jamison out to Schreck. Now they go back inside of Jamison, and boy, he's got a big-time mismatch. But they go outside the Schreck, and he has his shot promptly blocked.
Yeah, they had Collins on Jamison in the post, and I think that's where Jamison has to be a little bit more aggressive. Even though Pruitt came for the double team there, I think you can really work something there with Jamison in the post.
A drive, and the shot is missed, but a foul will be called against Dan Auble as he was defending on the play.
I think they called it on the floor, too, so no free throws resulting.
Avery Collins was the one that was attempting to drive towards the hoop, and you are correct, partner. It is not a shooting foul. However, the first foul of the night belongs to Capital.
Capital is using a 2-3 zone right now, Charlie.
Mason, hook shot. That's no good, and Boone grabs the rebound for Capital. Here comes Dan Auble, who'll push it ahead to Schreck. Schreck on the left wing. Now back outside to Auble as he'll bark out the signals in the half court. Schreck now with the ball, now passing it off to Boone. Boone trying to look inside. Now back outside to Auble. 10 on the shot clock for Dan. Dan top of the arc trying to spin around, gets a screen from Jamison, and now they try to go on the inside, and a foul will be called against Capital. Looks like Tyler Jamison was trying to move around a Heidelberg player. Might have gotten caught with like the old hook around move.
Yeah, and Kier Benny right now on Auble, he's not giving him any kind of space. We did see him hit the deck there guarding. It looked like he got his feet tied up with Jamison there, but Auble is having a really tough time penetrating right now.
Moxley will drive on in and score. Tier shot worked to perfection that time.
And not physical enough defensively on this side is Auble there. Rough start for him with the foul already.
2-0 lead for Heidelberg early on. Boone is going to be called for a traveling violation as he picked up his feet a little too soon on that jumper.
And coach is going quick to the bench here. He's bringing in
an entire
new
starting
guys.
five. Caleb Cox, Joey Weingartner, Gavin Wildermuth, Jane O'Neill, and Gia Haya will all check in for the starting five.
I think this is the right move and the right message, Charlie. We talked about how Capitals kind of bury themselves in holes, and we need a better start and better consistency, and coach going right to the bench. And it looks like one of the assistants down there talking to Schreck specifically, but the whole starting five.
That was Coach Golston, and it looks like Coach Goodwin is not messing around, at least to begin this ball game. Heidelberg back with the basketball. 13 on the shot clock. Floater in the lane, and that one will sink down for Moxley as well. 4-0 lead for Heidelberg early on. 17:40 remaining in our first half. G will push it ahead, but it's intercepted by Mason, who saves it successfully to his teammates. Driving ahead is Moxley, now a jumper. That is no good for Pruitt. And now a battle for the ball near the foul line. Jump ball. And they will keep it with Heidelberg. So 4-0 lead for Heidelberg with 17:27 remaining in the first half.
It might be time for a timeout already, Charlie. Capital not looking good right now. They look confused on defense, and luckily they just got a break here at the foul on Mason inside.
Offensive foul called against Heidelberg. First of the game for the Berg. Capital, meanwhile, with 2 to begin this game. O'Neill will quickly get it into Wildermuth. Somewhat of a press, but Capital's able to solve it. G passing it over to Gavin Wildermuth. Now it's over to Caleb Cox. Yahaya, top of the arc. Back to Wildermuth. Wildermuth over to Cox. Cox over to the hoop, and he scores.
Got Mason to leave his feet there with that pump fake from the high elbow. That's a shot that you have to respect from both Cox and Boone. The big men can play more of a stretch 4 game. Mason was not ready for that kind of a shot from Cox.
Pruitt. Over to DeAvery Collins on the right wing. Collins almost stripped. It goes out of bounds, and it'll stay with Heidelberg. 13 remaining on the shot clock. Both teams getting off to relatively slow starts offensively. Capital 1 of 3 from the field. Heidelberg 2 of 4. And now Collins getting set to inbound the ball from the near side, and now a conference between our officials. Our officials tonight, by the way, Jeff Vetsicki, Chris Nelson, and Matt Now. Now there's a conference with Coach Goodwin and one of our officials.
I'm not sure if he's thinking that it didn't go off of G there or not. It was right in front of his vantage point. It doesn't seem clear whether he's talking about the last play or something else going on. He keeps pointing towards the basket as well. Coach Goodwin, that is.
It looks like the conversation was dying down here a little bit. You see, if only I was a lip reader.
Yeah, one of the official here that's moved to the top side of the court trying to end this conversation. Now Coach Goodwin is talking to this official instead, and the officials are trying to get play going.
I mean, no offense, Coach, but can we play basketball already? Chris Moxley receives the inbound. He'll drive on in, and wild shot as it goes out of bounds. Cox might have gotten a piece of it, too.
That had to have.
So now Heidelberg will take it out of bounds with 5 remaining on the shot clock. Moxley will be the trigger man for the Berg. Moxley having trouble. Finally gets it in to Pruitt. Pruitt, long jumper. That's no good. Offensive rebound. Putback. That's no good as well. As Mason missed it. And a foul will be called against Heidelberg as there was a tangle up between Gavin Wildermuth and Pruitt. Pruitt is the one that's hit with the foul.
Pruitt just had to throw up that three-pointer there. There was only 3 left on the shot clock. And then Pruitt trying to chase down his own miss. As actually an offensive rebound by Benson instead. And then Benson threw one up. And still out of control a little bit was Pruitt there. And Wildermuth able to draw the foul.
Checking in is Connor Hutchinson, the sophomore out of Lambertville, Michigan for Heidelberg, who leads Capital 4-2. 16:25 remaining in the first half. Gavin Wildermuth on the right wing. He'll try to drive, and he'll have a shot blocked by Mason. Or Prince Benson, excuse me, who's checked into the game. Kier Benning, top of the arc. Trying to dribble, and a foul is called on the inside. As Benny came close to traveling, and now Heidelberg, they'll be making some mass substitutions. Surprise, surprise. That seems like the norm in the OAC. C.J. Marshall, Michael Davis checking in for the Berg, as well as, let's see, already talked about Hutchinson in the game. Joined out there. I thought I saw a third person out there. Maybe it's Malik Quisenberry. Actually, Andrew Grodhouse. Now we got all 3. Marshall. Now it's swung all the way around. Inside. Nice ball movement. Leads to a foul by Gavin Wildermuth as he was defending on potential shot by Connor Hutchinson. So the Michigan native will actually head to the free throw line now after the foul. 4th on Capital.
We talked about in the top, Charlie, about how each team brings their own kind of matchup to the table with Capital. We're seeing much more of a physical game again, the same kind of style we saw with Marietta as well as John Carroll. Just not as much up and down from Heidelberg. They're just more of a grinded out, both sides of the floor, physical team. And we're seeing a lot of fouls from both sides early in this game.
Hutchison makes the first free throw, misses the second, so he splits the pair. Capital quickly back on offense as O'Neal will bark out the signals. Signaling the play in the half court. Capital trailing Heidelberg 5-2, 15:40 left to play in the first half. Weingartner, step back, Jay. That's no good. Battle for the loose ball. Still a battle. It'll go out of bounds off of Heidelberg, so Capital will get a fresh shot clock as a result.
And O'Neal didn't get that rebound, Charlie, on the weak side there, but he was in position, so Benson really couldn't reach over him or anything like that, and that's why you see a mad scramble for the ball. Even though O'Neal doesn't get the rebound, he's in the right position, and Capital gets rewarded for it.
O'Neal, a very scrappy player, and that time it turned out to be a very good box out by the guard. Weingartner on the right wing, dribbling to his left. Joey still trying to decipher, and now a foul. Let's see here. It's going to be called against Heidelberg.
Split second before Weingartner went up, so that three-pointer is washed away.
Looks like Michael Davis might have been called for the foul.
Always like seeing Jackson out there with Weingartner. Got 2 shooters to really stretch it out with.
Tyrell Jackson out there for Capital. Weingartner, meanwhile, working with the ball. And now he has to pass off to someone. He gets into the hands of Tyrell Jackson. 20 on the shot clock for Tyrell. Tyrell over to G. G is going to be called for traveling. And you know, Jimmy, a word that we often use in the pregame show was stagnation. How things have stagnated for Capital offensively. Stagnation was probably the buzzword for the month of January, and we're seeing it in this game against Heidelberg so far.
Yeah, we're looking for whether it's a player or maybe a stretch of play, something that kind of injects some life into this team here.
Marshall passing it off on the left wing over to Hutchison. Now on the inside to Davis. Davis, jumper in the lane. No good on the shot, but he was fouled on the play, looked like by Weingartner. So now Michael Davis will head to the free throw line.
Well, strap in, folks. This is going to be one of those ugly, grinded-out basketball games, and we're working on a 5-2 score, and each of those 7 points was earned by both these teams. And Weingartner, again, playing some really good defense. Just got a little bit too much of the body of Davis there as he went up for the shot, and Davis goes to the deck. It's an easy call for the officials.
Davis, right-handed shooter, misses his first free throw. He hails from West Portsmouth, Ohio. 6-foot sophomore for the Student Princes, who lead Capital 5-2 with 14:45 remaining in what has been a low-scoring first half, to say the least.
Yeah, we have 8 fouls and now 8 combined points as that free throw goes.
Splits the pair, does Davis. 6-2 lead for Heidelberg after that made foul shot. And now Heidelberg going with a little mini press here, but Capital able to break it. Jackson over to Jane O'Neal. O'Neal on the right wing over to Jackson. Over to Weingartner now on the left wing. Joey dribbling to his right. 13 on the shot clock. Weingartner now on the right wing. Trying to get a screen from G. Joey, jumper from the foul line. That is no good. G, offensive board, put back. That's no good as Prince Benson grabs the defensive board for Heidelberg. Quickly up the floor now is C.J. Marshall. He'll get it in the corner now. Marshall trying to drive. Kick out. Jumper. That is good. It is knocked down by Andrew Grothaus, and now a timeout's going to be taken by Capital. Probably a very much needed timeout here for Capital, if you ask me. 14:03 remaining in the first half. Heidelberg 8, Capital 2. This is your home for Crusaders men's basketball, the Capital Sports Network. Back here at the Capital Center, 14:03 remaining in the first half. Heidelberg leading Capital 8-2. Speaking of scores, Ohio Northern leading Baldwin Wallace 30-18 with 10:26 remaining in the first half of that game. Wilmington trailing Muskingum 18-12 with 13:24 left to play in the first half of that affair. And finally, Marietta 23, Mount Union 14 with 11:11 remaining in the first half of that game. Jackson's jumper for Capital, no good. Now there's a foul called on the inside, and it looks like it's going to go against Heidelberg's Andrew Grothaus.
Jackson took that initial shot from the right wing and somehow got all the way to the left elbow for the offensive rebound, missed again. But that's something that he's really brought to the table here that we haven't seen from him in previous years, his ability to be around the basketball, especially on the rebounding side of things.
So far, Capital 1 of 9 from the field, 0 of 1 from three-point range as well. 16 on the shot clock. Boone to O'Neal. O'Neal dribbling to his right. Kick out to Schreck. Schreck will go baseline. Tough shot. Schreck missed it, but he was fouled. As a blocking foul, I believe, is going to be called on the inside against C.J. Marshall. So now Schreck will head to the free throw line. On the season, let's see here. Schreck is 51 of 82 from the foul line. Good for 62.2%. So hopefully he can improve on that average a little bit.
It's got to be better. The starting five, I should say, out there, with the exception of O'Neal for Aubel, but Aubel just checking in now, so it is officially the starting five.
And meanwhile, for Heidelberg, Mike Mason coming in, as well as Myron Pruitt and DeAvery Collins.
It looks like they basically have their starting five out there as well. The only exception would be Benny is still not in, and Andrew Grouthouse is back into the game for Heidelberg in his spot.
Second free throw by Schreck is good. 8-4 lead for Heidelberg with 13:20 remaining in the first half. Another foul called on the inside. Shot will not count. It wasn't a shooting foul. It happened on the floor as Nate Boone got hit with a foul for Capital.
His second foul already.
And for the team, that's already their 6th. Wow.
Yep, that's something else.
Heidelberg, meanwhile, they got 5, so they're not that far behind either. Jumper on the way. Three-pointers no good for DeAvery Collins, and the rebound taken by Tyrell Jackson.
And you see he missed that shot, Charlie, but that's exactly what we're talking about, where there's split-second lapses and the defense allows open shots. Those were shots that, the top teams in the conference, Ohio Northern and Marietta, they didn't miss those shots. Heidelberg, you see, did.
Jackson missing the shot. Jamison trying to corral the offensive board. Held ball between Jamison and Mason, meanwhile, and Capital is rewarded with possession.
I felt like Capital has not been shooting very well, Charlie. I just took a glance at the stats for the first time. 1 for 9 right now, 11%. So it has been a while. Their last basket came at 17:07 4 minutes ago, but that was the only one they've made in 7 minutes.
Mason sits. Benson checks in for Heidelberg.
Gotta get it in.
Trying to get it in, but it will deflect off the hands of Andrew Grothaus. He was trying to get it into the Shrek, but Grothaus doing a nice job of getting into the passing lane.
That was a long 5 seconds there. I don't know. You get that pressure kind of mounts up there, and you don't necessarily know exactly when that 5-second call is coming. I think he got it away just in time.
It's like a quarterback back there in the pocket. You got to have that timer up in your head. Otherwise, you won't be able to get rid of the ball quickly. Boone trying to back his man down to the right block. Turnaround, Jay. That's off the side of the backboard, but Boone gets it back. Boone, floater in the lane is good.
They had to attack there. Again, they got Collins on a mismatch. For some reason, Collins keeps finding himself guarding post players. Every time that happens, Capital needs to isolate that matchup. Boone does shoot the first one off the side of the backboard, but he's able to recover it.
Heidelberg 8, Capital 6, 12:35 left to play in the first half. Heidelberg losing the ball, and Tyrell Jackson comes up with a steal. Here comes Tyrell at the other end. Jumper from the foul line. Tyrell knocks it down, and we're knotted at 8.
Going offensively here. They made their last 2 shots, obviously, after the drought that we talked about. And this 2-3 zone, I think, is a little bit confusing for Heidelberg. Capital hasn't really used the zone in recent games, Charlie. It's something they've kind of gone back to now.
Moxley passing off to Collins. Now it's back in the hands of Moxley at the top of the arc. Back to Collins on the left wing. Collins swings it back outside. Now they go inside, back outside. 4 on the shot clock. Collins outside. Grothaus for 3. That's no good. But Prince Benson comes away with the offensive board and feeds Grothaus for an easy 2. 10-8 lead now for Heidelberg.
That's kind of deflating. You play 30 seconds of excellent defense, but the offensive rebound, always something susceptible to a 2-3 zone.
Shrek, wild shot, no good, and the rebound is taken by Prince Benson. A lot of contact there, but no call. Meanwhile, Heidelberg quickly back out on offense as Moxley dribbling around on the right wing. He will pass it to a teammate, and DeAvery Collins now back to Moxley. He'll now drive the lane. Jamison bothers him defensively.
And there's a lot of contact there too, Charlie, but at some point you've got to get the flow of the game going. I think that's what the officials are trying to do.
Jackson for 3, and he knocks it down from the corner. Tyrell Jackson from deep.
We've had a nice flow to this game here the last few minutes, and Capital's really taking advantage of it. Another steal now.
And Abel grows to the ground. It'll be a jump ball. They'll give it to Muskingum. A near steal, though, for the freshman from Brecksville, Ohio. Meanwhile, Heidelberg will have Kiera Benny check back in.
And timeout called by Heidelberg. And this is a good one. The flow of the game, like I just said, Charlie, it's really picking up. Capital is really taking advantage of it. Heidelberg wants to slow this thing back down.
30-second timeout here at the Capitol Center, so we'll keep things right here for now. 11 minutes remaining in our first half. Capital leading Heidelberg 11-10. A quick look at the OAC scoreboard brought to you by Jersey Mike Subs and Sandwiches. Ohio Northern up big against Baldwin Wallace 40-25 with 6:53 left to play in the first half. Also in the first half, at Muskingum, the Muskies leading Wilmington 22-20 with 10.5 to play in the first half of their affair. And Marietta leading Mount Union 25-19, 8:09 remaining in the first half of that game up in Alliance, Ohio. So now both teams quickly back on the floor. Heidelberg back with possession. DeAvery Collins will get it in to Chris Moxley. Moxley being bothered by Boone defensively, but he's able to get the pass off. Now it's back in the hands of Moxley. Now over to Kiera Benny. Deep 3 for Benny, and he got hit on the shot. Missed the three-pointer. But Tyrell Jackson is going to be called for the foul. So now 3 free throws. Try saying that 5 times fast upcoming here for Benny.
I was about to point out, too, Charlie, no shots so far for Kier Benny. That was his first look. It won't even count as a shot attempt because of the foul. And it's really interesting that he hasn't really been a part of the offense at all today for Heidelberg. That's something that they need to go back to. Kier Benny, their leading scorer, is one of the elite guards in this conference as well.
First free throw knocked down by Benny. Second free throw upcoming here. Benny averaging a little over 15 points per game. And Jimmy, you're right. It has been a quiet night for him so far as he misses the second free throw. One more free throw upcoming here for Benny. Again, he was just fouled by Tyrell Jackson on a three-point shot. Benny with an opportunity to give Heidelberg the lead here, and he does not. Made the first one, missed the next 2. Tied at 11 between Heidelberg and Capital. Abel thought about a shot. Now he's picking up his dribble. He'll pass it off to Tyrell Jackson. Now over to Boone. Boone almost losing it, but perhaps might have gotten bailed out right there, as Myron Pruitt will be called for a reach-in foul.
Pruitt has 2 fouls now, as well as Mason for Heidelberg, and that's 2 of their best defenders. You got their best interior defender in Mason, and now Pruitt, their best, front court defender on players from the outside. So Tyrell Jackson might have a little more space to operate now. Pruitt has also been kind of guarding Nate Boone at times, giving them some more size and athleticism to deal with Boone. So it'll be interesting to see how they respond now with probably their 2 best defenders on the bench for probably the rest of the half, Charlie.
Front end of a 1-and-1 situation. Good for Nate Boone. Both teams with 7 fouls, so both teams are going to be shooting free throws here for the rest of the way, at least here in the first half. Boone's second free throw on the way. That's no good. And the rebound, hold on a minute. Jamison almost had it, but Prince Benson somehow found a way to pluck it out of the air. And now Moxley will drive on in, missing the layup out of bounds, and they're going to give it to Capital. I mean, Moxley came down the lane with a full head of steam that time, but I guess rushed the shot, and Capital dodges a bullet right there.
And Hutchinson unable to follow that up. That's something that Pruitt probably grabs. Hutchinson is going to be getting some extended minutes, and that's a matchup Capital should try to attack.
Out to Boone. Now in the hands of Abel. Now they go inside. Jamison to Abel. Abel diving, and a turnover for Capital. They'll feed it ahead. And the shot missed. Boone with the rebound. Now for the miss by Hutchison. Now they feed it ahead to Abel. Abel will now do the smart thing and pull it back out. No, a jumper. And Abel knocks it down from deep.
And if Abel wants to get involved in the offense, that's what's going to do it, because Kier Benny, like I said, he's keeping Abel in front of him.
And now Schreck with the steal. Ahead. And a bucket and a foul. Dan Abel able to race ahead of the pack. Got hit on his way to the 10. He'll go to the line to try to complete a 3-point play.
And now a foul on Moxley, so that's probably the next guy you want to start targeting, him and Benson, in terms of fouls. Benson's going to be headed to the bench right now.
Alex Arlano, 6'6" freshman from Oakwood, Ohio. Went to Paulding High School. There are only 2 Oakwoods I know of in the state of Ohio. My hometown, Oakwood, the suburb of Dayton, and Oakwood, which I believe is up near the Cleveland area. He's probably not from Dayton because I have never heard of Paulding High School. No offense to them, but just never heard of them. Abel hitting the free throw. 17-11 lead for Capital. They've stretched the lead out to 6 here. 9:40 remain in the first half. Over to Kiera Benny. Now in the hands of Moxley. Moxley, top of the arc. And he has the ball almost poked away by Schreck. It goes out of bounds, and it went off of a Heidelberg player. Give the ball to Capital.
At this point, Capital just has better players on the floor right now, Charlie. And as a coach for Heidelberg, Coach Buhai here, he's got a decision to make as C.J. Marshall checks back in. You've got 2 guys with fouls already, with Pruitt and Mason, both with 2 fouls. But if you keep them on the bench, there might not be a game for them to come back into. Obviously, it's just a 6-point game right now, so we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. But it's always kind of delicate to play with that balance. And we still have 9 minutes to go in this half, Charlie. You might have to get them back out there despite the 2 fouls.
Schreck, a drive, pump fake, and he gets the bucket to go. Nice moves by Austin Schreck as a timeout will be taken by Heidelberg. We'll step aside as well. 9:12 remain in the first half. Capital with a 19-11 lead over Heidelberg here on your home for Crusaders men's basketball, the Capital Sports Network. Welcome back to the Capital Center. 9:12 remaining in the first half. It is Capital 19, Heidelberg 11. Another check of scores around the OAC. John Carroll leading Otterbein 33-22 with 6:16 remaining. Easy for me to say in the first half. Howard Northern already up to over 50 points in the first half. They lead Baldwin Wallace 51-39. Mount Union trailing Marietta 34-23, and Wilmington trailing Muskingum 29-25. All those games in the middle to latter stages of the first half. Three-pointer knocked down. Big shot right there for Heidelberg as it is buried by Michael Davis. 19-14 lead now for Capital after the made triple by the Berg. Abel trying to break the press ahead to Weingartner. Weingartner dribbles ahead. Jumper off the side of the backboard. No good, and the rebound taken by the Berg. Arlano with the rebound. Now C.J. Marshall in the corner. Here, Benny. He'll kick it out. Davis for three. That's no good. Battle for the loose ball, and Jamison eventually comes down with the rebound for Capital.
And a quick note on that Ohio Northern game, Charlie. Devin Allen, 7 of 10 from 3 in the first half, doing his best Steph Curry impression.
Out of bounds. It'll stay with Capital. I like that.
He's
Steph Curry.
taken 10 shots, and they're all three-pointers. He made 7 of them.
You know, quickly on Steph Curry, did you hear about the night he had in Charlotte the other week? Got his high school jersey retired, and he had the student section at his alma mater, Davidson, named after him.
That's a pretty good day.
Yeah, that is a great day. And his team beat Charlotte the next night, too. So I'd say a good stay in Charlotte. 21-14 lead now for Capital with 7:58 remaining in the first half. And G almost with a foul, but he'll be called for a reach in as he was trying to pluck the ball away from Alex Arlano.
Arlano this season at the free throw line, 69.6%, 16 for 23, shooting 1-1.
8th foul on Capital this half, and 8 fouls on Heidelberg as well.
Still no sign of Mason or Pruitt in this game, Charlie.
Arlano, freshman out of Oakwood, Ohio, misses the front end of a 1-1. Jamison trying to pass it ahead, but it's stolen by Michael Davis. Benny for three. That's no good. And G pulls down the rebound. Uh-oh. G's in the open floor, gives it, and he gets it back from Abel. Misses the shot. Jamison's tip. That's no good. G goes back up, has his shot blocked, and a loose ball is eventually corralled by Kier Benny of Heidelberg. Frustrating sequence right there for Capital. They go inside, and the layup is made by Alex Arlano.
Good patience there from Benson. Could have kicked to the top, but he saw Arlano cutting late right down the heart of the defense.
Jackson to Abel. Now ahead to Weingartner across the timeline. Joey with a little behind the back action. Jackson for three. Tyrell hit the three, and he was fouled as well.
Joey Weingartner, after making that pass, just started heading down the floor because he knew it was going down. He had to turn around because Jackson was fouled in the traditional 4-point play chance.
Will Hanna and Austin Schreck check in for Capital.
A nice find from Weingartner. Jackson really coming to the basketball there.
Well, it's about time that we see a big play out of Tyrell Jackson. We know that he is fully capable of taking over a game, particularly from the perimeter.
And they don't have Pruitt to guard him. I'm going to say it again, Charlie. I mean, two of their best defenders on the bench right now. Capital has a lot of opportunity here to build some points.
And the free throw missed by Tyrell Jackson. Boy, that's a rarity around here.
That said, though, Charlie, Heidelberg still has Kier Benny, and they really need to get him going. Really, Michael Davis is playing the best game right now for Heidelberg.
And Davis knocks down a three from the left wing.
Right on cue. Michael Davis having a night already. He averages 3.9 points per game in 11 minutes, but due to the foul situation, he's been a big contributor for him today.
Abel will race up the floor for Capital, who leads Heidelberg 24-19. 6:36 remaining in the first half. Hanna, top of the arc, will now try to drive. Wild shot, and boy, Hanna got bailed out right there. I think they're going to call this foul on Prince Benson, sophomore out of Adrian, Michigan.
It's his second already as well. Boy, that looked like a travel. Hanna lost control of the ball, lost control of his body, went right into Benson in a very late whistle, but the break goes our way.
So now Hanna will head to the free throw line. Will Hanna, 6'4" sophomore out of Milford, misses the first free throw.
And both these teams struggling right now at the line. 3 for 8 for Heidelberg, 4 for 7 for Cap.
One more free throw for Hannah. And Will knocks it down.
Now we see Hutchinson coming back in, and he comes in for Benson. So right now, Hutchinson's playing at the 5.
And DeAvery Collins also checks in for Heidelberg as well.
If they don't start force-feeding the ball to Jamison right now, there's no size out there for Heidelberg.
25-19 lead for Capital. 6:24 remain in the first half. Back in the hands of Moxley. Moxley looks kind of confused by the zone that Capital is employing.
They're using a 2-1-2 now, and they're having Jamison play at the free throw line almost.
And Moxley with the floater on the inside brings Heidelberg to within 4 of Capital. 25-21, 6:02 remain in the first half. Schreck
slow things down here and get something for Jamison.
battles his way out of a double team. Does Schreck. Now over to Abel, swung around to Hannah. Hannah trying to get it into Jamison. Does so. Jamison near the left block. Trying to get his man down. And now a 3. Hannah, that's an air ball, but Jackson gets the rebound. And he thought he might have thrown that off of a Heidelberg player, but instead it's saved somehow by Grothaus.
Yeah, actually, I think it hit off the shin of Grothaus, but he was able to catch it off of a high bounce.
That's good hand-eye coordination. Jumper, that's no good. Abel with the rebound. And now he's looking to push it. Ahead to Schreck. Schreck has a shot blocked. And the rebound taken by Grothaus. Back ahead to Heidelberg. Quick pass, and it's batted out of bounds by Dan Abel. Boy, everybody's trying to look like those Showtime Lakers teams of the 1980s, but the problem is the passes aren't finding the necessary teammates.
Hutchinson ran right into the mat behind the basket, too, after that pass.
Youch.
Self-inflicted. And sure enough, here comes Myron Pruitt into the game for Hutchinson with 2 fouls. 5 minutes left in the half. Good time for Capital to go right at him, try to get that third.
10 fouls for Heidelberg, 8 for Capital this half. And we still have a little over 5 minutes left to play in the first half. 25-21 lead for Capital over Heidelberg. They'll go inside to Benny. Benny jumper, that's no good. Offensive rebound, and the putback is good for Malik Quisenberry. 5'11 freshman out of Springfield. 25-23 lead now for Capital. Abel, cross half court, over to Schreck. Kick out, Hannah to Jackson for 3. Tyrell not able to knock it down, and the rebound taken by DeAvery Collins, although I like the extra pass by Will Hannah. That was good ball movement. Quisenberry on the left wing, being guarded by Schreck.
He easily has the best shoe fashion of the night.
DeAvery Collins, yes, I would definitely agree with you there.
Turns it over.
And now Schreck with the steal. Schreck ahead, and Schreck is able to score with the right hand.
Good aggressiveness there.
27-23 lead for Capital. I like how Dan Abel said, hey, you keep it, big boy. I'll let you score. And a rebound for Capital. Abel trying to run out. Abel, quick J. That's no good. Rebound taken by Heidelberg's Malik Quisenberry.
A bit of a heat check there, and Abel just kind of puts his head down, knowing that he probably shouldn't have taken that shot.
Collins over to Quisenberry. Quisenberry over to Moxley. Now it's back in the hands of Quisenberry. Those are very interesting shoes. We'll talk about more as the game goes on. I'm serious. As Schreck is able to grab the rebound real quick on the shoes. How would you describe those, Jimmy?
Yeah, I don't know. It's got like a highlighter accent to it. I don't know what to call it, but it looks good. I like the style, and I think they should all go with that.
Abel on the right wing, meanwhile, in the purple and white shoes.
I don't know if that's even just duct tape wrapped around it. I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I don't know either. Foul called against Heidelberg.
And
all I know is this: you can see those shoes from outer space.
We'll definitely know who Quisenberry is on the court. Quick note about Pruitt and his defense, Charlie. He came out of the game at that 10:36 mark with that second foul. At that point, in over almost 10 minutes, Capital had just 11 points. Then he went to the bench, came back in at the 4:50 mark. So in about 5 minutes, Capital was able to put up 14 after scoring 11 in the 10 minutes beforehand. Just kind of give you that impact that Pruitt brings on the defensive side of the floor.
Hannah makes the first free throw, and oh boy, slew of substitutions here. Jane O'Neill and Joey Weingartner come back in for Capital. Meanwhile, for Heidelberg, let's see here, Hutchison, also Kier Benny is out there, as well as Michael Davis and DeAvery Collins, and finally C.J. Marshall. Hey, I got it.
Not bad.
Yeah, hey,
that was
there
pretty
you go.
good. That was a clinic right there.
Hannah with the free throw, and that's good as well.
Yeah, And worth noting again, Charlie Pruitt goes back to the bench now, so 3:19 here. I would look for Weingartner to get going here, and just him and Jackson let it shoot around. But again, you have Hutchinson matched up with Jamison as well.
Benny inside. There's a loose ball on the floor. O'Neal dives after it, goes out of bounds, and they give it to Capital.
That was a lucky break there as O'Neal dove for the basketball. He didn't come close to grabbing it, but he actually just tipped it barely off of the foot of Davis, and now Heidelberg is lost defensively.
Tyrell Jackson over to Weingartner. Joey dribbling around. Baseline, feeds Boone. Boone not able to make the bucket, but he was fouled, so now Nate will head to the free throw line.
Nice backdoor cut there by Boone to open himself up. Weingartner really needed someone to make that cut. And the foul goes on Kier Benny also, which is not a bad thing for the Crusaders either.
The quiet night, by the way, continues for Kier Benny.
0 for 2 from the field.
Only 1 point. And the free throw is good for Nate Boone. Columbus, Ohio native. Now Caleb Cox, the Cincinnati native, checking in for Tyler Jamison for Capital.
This is an important 3-minute stretch, Charlie, because Mason's going to be back in the game and Pruitt will be back in the game at the start of the second half. So you have 3 minutes here to build as much of a lead as you can. They lead by 7 right now. Heidelberg just trying to keep this thing as close as possible and survive these last 3 minutes, I think.
Boone missing the second free throw. 30-23 lead for Capital. 2:41 remaining in the first half. Jumper in the lane, and that will rattle in and out, and Boone grabs the rebound for Capital. O'Neal looking to push it ahead. Over to Weingartner. Weingartner, wild shot, but Cox with the tip in.
And he had to shoot, but Weingartner there was going to travel if he didn't. Smart play to throw it off the backboard. Cox, good job following up. The transition game's been nice for Capital to this point.
Capital 32, Heidelberg 23, 2:15 left to play in our first half. Dribbling around is Michael Davis. Davis will now get it on over to Collins. Collins back to Davis with 11 on the shot clock. Davis, pass on the inside. Layup is good. Count the bucket and a foul as they were able to find Connor Hutchison in the middle of the zone.
He landed hard on his left hip. He's grabbing at it as he heads to the line. You see him kind of grimacing in pain a little bit.
That's kind of hip tailbone territory right there.
Cox definitely made him earn it going to the ground there. And Hutchinson basically just has to tough this thing out because there's no one that can come in for him. Benson's got 2 and Mason has 2. They need to save them for the second half.
Son, I know you're a little dinged up, but we kind of need you out
Yeah,
there.
2 minutes. I'd go right at him on the defensive end of the floor now.
Hutchison, free throw is good.
A little bit slow to move, and it looks like he's going to the bench for a sub.
32-26 lead for Capital. 2:02 remaining in the first half. Weingartner will bring it up the floor for Capital. He'll cross the timeline now as Capital will get set here in the half court. Weingartner settles along the right wing with 16 on the shot clock. He'll pass it off to Tyrell Jackson. Jackson, top of the arc, circles to the left wing, now over to Cox, now swung around to Weingartner. 8 on the shot clock. Joey going over his options, being heavily guarded. They'll go on the inside to Cox, but not before a foul is called on the inside, looks like against Michael Davis.
Davis, just complete mismatch, and he's shaking his head as he heads towards the bench. Guarding Caleb Cox, obviously a huge mismatch with Cox's size on Davis. That's Davis's second foul too, Charlie.
And 2 free throws the rest of the way here for Capital in the first half as Cox will make the first.
Basically every key player for Heidelberg at this point, outside of Kier Benny, who is missing in action right now, all of them have 2 fouls. So Capital's in a really good spot. They're going to probably have a lead as we head into the half, and if they can just be more aggressive again in the second half and get Heidelberg even into more foul trouble, just keep attacking this depth because Heidelberg is kind of being exposed right now with the lack of that depth.
Koch hits the second free throw. 34-26 lead for Capital. 1:25 remaining in the first half. Jumper no good, loose ball. Heidelberg with the offensive board. Nice job by Grothaus digging that one out. Now they go on the inside. Floater in the lane is good for Hutchison.
I've got a couple of nice baskets off of that quick pass where Capital is, again, late to rotate, but those shots are going to happen when you're in the zone.
Jackson ahead to Weingartner.
Ooh,
Joey for 3. Joey, no good. Rebound is taken by Heidelberg as it's eventually picked up by Grothaus.
And Joey really faked himself out there, Charlie. Probably should have just taken that first look.
Benny, now a three-pointer. That's no good. It's thrown off of a Capital player, and boy, that ball nearly hit a cheerleader in the head.
And she is still A little bit shaken up. Didn't hit her, though.
I don't blame her.
She's laughing it off now.
Jamison and Hannah come back in for Capital. 45.5 seconds remain in our first half. And by the way, folks, we invite you into the Rusty Bucket halftime show. Coming up, we'll take it to scores around the OAC and first half stats as well from this game. 34-28 lead for Capital. Under 43 seconds and counting now. Collins dribbling around, battling through some traffic, gets a deflected ball back. Floater, no good. Rebound taken by Jamison. And now Jamison will get fouled, it looked like, by Heidelberg. Looks like they're going to call the foul against Grodhaus, and Jamison will be heading to the free throw line with 32.9 seconds remaining in the first half.
And guess who's that second foul on? Grodhaus now.
Oh,
so
boy.
He has 2. Davis has 2. Pruitt has 2. Mason has 2. Moxley has 2.
I'm starting to sense a theme here.
Benson has 2. Just trying to keep everybody informed.
So now Jamison will head to the free throw line.
Coach Boo, I had this much. Who else am I supposed to play here, Mr. Official? I don't I don't understand.
You see, my bench only goes so far. And the free throw is missed by Jamison. One more coming up for Tyler. 34-28 lead for Capital. Jane O'Neill and Schreck will come in primarily for their defense. One more free throw upcoming here for Jamison.
3-second differential right now between shot and game clock, and probably will be a last shot attempt for Heidelberg. Clock's going to keep running also on a made basket, so even if they shoot with 4 or 5, 6 seconds left, if it goes in, by the time it's inbounded, you might only have a half-court heave.
35-28 lead for Capital. 21 seconds and counting. Dribbling around is C.J. Marshall. He is going to let that clock tick, 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 tick down.
And credit the Student Princes. They really held their own in this game with their depth being tested. They kept this game at worst a 7-point deficit.
5 seconds on the shot clock. Marshall's got to go. 4 seconds, 3 seconds. Floater, no good for Marshall. Jamison grabs the board. Ahead to Jackson. He puts it up, and it's no good. Just short for Tyrell. That's how the first half will end. At the end of the first half, Capital 35, Heidelberg 28. Join us for the Rusty Bucket halftime show, which will be playing in just a moment or so. In the meantime, we will take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll take a look at scores around the Ohio Athletic Conference as well as the halftime stats of our game. You are listening to men's basketball here on the Capital Sports Network. Welcome into the Rusty Bucket halftime show. At the half, it is Capital leading Heidelberg 35-28. Time now to look at some scorers around the Ohio Athletic Conference. This OAC scoreboard update is brought to you by Jersey Mike's Subs and Sandwiches. First, some men's scores for you. At the half, Ohio Northern leading Baldwin Walls 53-44. Another game taking place, this time at John Carroll. The Blue Streaks leading Otterbein in this one 55-29 as they have gone to halftime as well. At the half at Muskingum, the Muskies leading Wilmington 43-29, and Marietta up big against Mount Union. They lead the Purple Raiders 45-26 as they are getting set for second half action over in Alliance. And some women's basketball scores for you. Let's start with Capital. They are in a Donnybrook with Heidelberg. They lead the Berg 22-20 in that game so far. Actually 30-28 with 7:02 remaining in the first half. And Chelsea Plaza off to a nice start offensively. Jimmy with 9 points.
Kind of my reaction too. Out of nowhere, 4 for 5 for her. Annika right behind her with 6 points, and Ando with 5. And the team overall doing a much better job offensively, 65% from the field.
Meanwhile, Ohio Northern leading Baldwin Walls 18-15 as they get set to begin action in the second quarter. All these games, by the way, on the women's side, it started at 7:30. Marietta with a 20-10 lead over Mount Union as they begin playing the second quarter. 9:18 left to play in the second quarter at Wilmington. Quakers leading Muskingum in that one 15-13. And finally, Otterbein, the women's team that is, leading John Carroll 15-14. They are just about to start the second quarter of that game. Let us now take a look at the halftime stats brought to you by Plank's Cafe and Pizzeria. First for Heidelberg, Student Princes paced offensively by Michael Davis. He had 7 points on 2 of 3 shooting, all of his makes coming from three-point range, and also 1 make from the foul line as well. 6 points for Connor Hutchinson, 2 points each for Malik Quisenberry and Alex Arlano. 4 points for Andrew Grothaus, 7 points, as I just mentioned that, 7 points for Michael Davis, 6 points for Chris Moxley, and only 1 point for Kira Benny, which is quite surprising considering that he's the team's leading scorer, averaging a little over 15 points per game coming into play tonight. Meanwhile, for Capital, Tyrell Jackson, he is leading Capital in scoring with 8 points, 4 points with Nate Boone, 3 points for Tyler Jamison, 6 points for Austin Schreck, 5 points for Dan Auble, 3 points for Will Hanna, and 6 points for Caleb Cox. As a team, Heidelberg shot 34% from the field, only 2 of 10 from three-point range, and 4 of 9 from the foul line. Capital, meanwhile, shot 11 of 31 from the field, good for 35.5%, 2 of 6 from three-point range, good for 33%, and 11 of 16 from the foul line, good for 68.8%. Other statistics of note, Jimmy, Capital out-rebounds Heidelberg 26-21. And 2 stats that I kind of pointed out to you during our break, Jimmy. Heidelberg's bench outscoring Capital's bench 21-9, yet Capital leads in the points off turnovers category 12-3 in favor of Cap.
What I'm looking at, Charlie, is Myron Pruitt. He has 0 points right now for Heidelberg. Pruitt averages 11.6 per game. Chris Moxley has 6 of his average of 13.6, so he's on track, but he got his 6 points very early in the game and hasn't really done much since then. Kier Benny, you mentioned 1 point. He averages 15 a game. And you got, again, D'Avery Collins, who has 10 points a game as his average 9.9. Will round up to 10. He also has a big goose egg up there. He's 0 for 6 from the field. So Heidelberg's top 4 scorers into this game have combined for 7 points, and 6 of them have come from Moxley.
Why do you think so?
I don't know. They're just struggling. Really, the physicality, I think, is it's the zone that is really confusing them. I think Capital has gone away from that zone. We haven't seen them play the 2-3 zone in a long time. And at times, Jamison's even creeping up, making it more of a 2-1-2 zone or a 1-3-1 zone, if you will. So they're kind of throwing different kind of matchup zone looks at them, and they seem very confused by it. Mason, obviously, his big 0 as well is due to his foul situation. Pruitt has not been on the floor a while. And Kier Benny, I don't know what the deal is, but they're just really not giving him the basketball or giving him opportunities to create. So you look at the production they've got from that bench. You mentioned the 21 points. Davis with 7, 6 from Hutchinson, 4 from Grothaus. Those are not scores they're counting on. Those are probably, they'd be happy with those numbers at the end of the game, let alone the end of the first half. So the starters for Heidelberg really got to get something going. The foul situation, though, is going to be an alarming situation for Heidelberg. They have 6 players with 2 fouls.
Yikes.
And a lot of those is the first backup for the starter, and both the starter and the backup have 2 fouls. So they might be going to third string at a couple of positions here in the middle part of the half again if they start picking up that 3rd and 4th foul. And at some point, Coach Buhai is just going to have to throw them out there with 4 fouls potentially. I think Capital in a good situation, obviously up by 7 at half, but man, they really could have done some damage with some of the depth players in there for Heidelberg, and they could have built this thing up, I think, to double digits. I think Coach Buhai is happy to be down by 7, all things considered right now. He's really looking for more from his starters, and it's got to stay out of foul trouble if you're the Berg right now.
Decisions certainly facing Andy Buhai as he is getting his student princes set for the second half. Meanwhile, Jimmy, who do you think takes home our honor of being the halftime hero?
I guess Tyrell Jackson. He has 8 points, and he's kind of been the big scorer for them, 2 3-pointers. He's 2 for 3. The team is 2 for 6, so kind of the Michael Davis of Heidelberg with 2 for 3 for them. I guess you got to go with Jackson, but really the team defense was the key in that first half, so not really a player of the half, but I guess the biggest key and biggest takeaway from that first half, the fact that the defense really stepped up and played well.
You mentioned the word key. Let's revisit the keys that you talked about in the pregame show and apply them to this upcoming second half.
I'd like to see them attack the three-point line a little bit more offensively. Again, they're 2 for 6 there, but Jackson's 2 for 3, and Weingartner is 0 for 1. So between the two of them, they took just 4 3-pointers. I think there's a lot of points to be had out there on the perimeter. And a key for me, keep attacking these guys with 2 fouls, especially the Pruitts and the Masons. Those are their main defensive guys right now, and I told you, a lot of the points Capital scored when Myron Pruitt was on the bench. He's the guy that you really need to attack, get him off of the floor. That's going to open up the three-pointer even more for Weingartner and Jackson and even Dan Aubel to get going as well from out there. So I think there's a lot of points to be had on the perimeter. I'm attacking the perimeter. And this zone, keep throwing different looks at there. Don't give them the same zone here in the second half. Obviously, they've seen it now for 20 minutes. They're going to make some in-game adjustments. I think Capital is going to have a few more tricks up their sleeve defensively. Getting out in transition has been a big key for them as well, Charlie. Off of these turnovers, you mentioned the points off turnovers. A lot of that is because of how well they're getting back down the floor in transition, and Heidelberg late to get back.
When we come back, we'll have second half action from the Capital Center for you at the half, or coming out of the half, I should say. It is Capital leading Heidelberg 35-28. You're on your home for Crusaders men's basketball, the Capital Sports Network.
Jimmy John's World's Greatest Gourmet Sandwiches, Ed speaking.
Yes, I need a sandwich delivery right away.
What kind of sandwich?
I don't care. Just get it to 215 Elm Street right now.
I'm on my way!
Jimmy John's.
Thanks for getting here so fast.
You're welcome, sir. Here's your sandwich. By the way, did you know your house is on fire?
That's why I called Jimmy John's.
Fire makes you hungry?
No, I knew you'd get here fast. Grab a bucket.
We're gonna need more than 2 guys, sir.
You're right. What'll we do?
Leave it to me, sir. Hello, boss? Send everyone you got to 215 Elm. Doesn't matter what kind of sandwich, sir. I'll explain later. Thank you, sir.
Jimmy John's. Come in.
Sir, did you know your house is on fire?
Yes, I did. Grab a bucket.
Jimmy John's.
Come in.
Sir, did you know your
Yes,
house
I
is
did.
on
Grab a
fire?
bucket.
Jimmy John's.
Come in.
Sir, did you know...
Yes, I did. Grab a bucket.
Jimmy John's.
Come in.
Sir, did you...
Yes, I did. Grab a bucket.
Fire department.
Come in.
Sir, did you know you...
It's okay, Captain. We got it handled. Care for a sandwich?
Thanks, but tell me something.
Shoot.
Why didn't you call the fire department first?
I did.
Welcome back here at the Capital Center. Moments away from starting the second half between Heidelberg and Capital. Jimmy, you will not be here on Saturday, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you this. Do you have a Super Bowl prediction with the Falcons and the Patriots getting set to play this Sunday?
I knew you would throw me on the spot again. I don't know. I'm rooting for Atlanta. I think most of the world is.
Everybody outside of New England.
I have a lot of respect for Tom Brady. I think if he gets another one, that pretty much cements him as the best ever. And he's still got a few more years left, too, which is pretty scary coming from, I guess, a pseudo-Jets fan. I'm a little bit in hiding right now with how bad we've been lately. But I'm going to go with Atlanta. I think the offense is amazing. The defense is underrated. So I guess put me on the hook for the Falcons.
I think the Falcons are going to find a way to pull it out. I got them winning 37-30. High-scoring affair in Houston.
Definitely will have a lot of points.
Now back to our game. Tyrell Jackson over to Nate Boone. Capital working with a 35-28 lead over Heidelberg coming out of the half. Boone spinning, twisting, turning, and it'll be called for a traveling violation right there.
I don't mind it, though. They're going right at Mason.
So now Heidelberg will get the ball back. Chris Moxley will quickly bring it up the floor for Heidelberg. Berg shooting around 33% from the field. Now it's back to Moxley. Moxley back outside. Benny for three. And he promptly knocks it down. Good start to the second half for Kier Benny, who had a very quiet first half. Only had 1 point, I believe.
That's right. And, hey, Charlie, we talked about the second half being a team that's more of a second-half team for the Crusaders. In the 8 games in January, they took a lead in the locker room just twice in those 8 games. They only won one of them. That was the game against Otterbein on the road.
So what you're telling me is this is already a step in the right direction.
That would be the point, I guess, but maybe it's a flip of the script. Hopefully they still come out strong here in half number 2.
Jackson trying to get it over to Boone, but it's fed into traffic, and Heidelberg comes away with the steal. Moxley trying to drive, and a blocking foul will be called against Nate Boone as Moxley will head to the free throw line.
It's Boone's third. They're going to go to Hannah, and this is usually where Yahaya would come in, but he's been struggling with his consistency in the last few games, so immediately we see Coach Goodwin go to Hannah instead of Yahaya. That's the third foul for Boone, and very sloppy first minute and a half of action here in half number 2 for the Crusaders.
Moxley knocks down his first free throw as Hannah will enter the game for Capital. You know, you bring up an interesting point, Jimmy. At the beginning of the year, G showed some flashes of brilliance, particularly athletically with the highlight dunks and all. But it seems like he's just hit the freshman wall.
Yeah, it's really on the defensive side of the floor, too, and then maybe on the offensive side trying to do too much.
Jackson not able to hit the three-pointer as Moxley comes away with the rebound. And, boy, he'll quickly move up the floor. And the jumper, that's no good. Mason with the rebound, however, and the putback is good.
And just to quickly go back to that point on G, I think when he is making those mistakes on the defensive side of the floor, Hannah's in trouble.
And Hannah is going to be, and a blocking foul is going to be called against Myron Pruitt.
Wow, they got another break there, Charlie, but I think G knows he's making the mistakes too, Charlie, and that's the frustrating part. Then he comes on the offensive side of the floor. He's trying to make up for that mistake and gets himself into more trouble, and the problems just kind of compound on each other. So, obviously, I don't think the book is over on him this season. He brings a lot to the table with his athleticism, and especially next offseason, though, that's real. We're going to see a lot of growth from G, and he's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. If not next year, maybe that junior year could be that big breakout year for him.
I'm definitely looking forward to seeing G next year with a full offseason under his belt. That could be something very special. Hannah, top of the arc, bouncing it over to Jackson. Tyrell trying to dribble on him, but he's cut off. Now on the perimeter, over to Abel. Abel, right wing, bouncing it down to Jamison. Fadeaway jumper, and Tyler not able to hit that as it rattles in and out. And now Will Hannah will be called for an over or back foul.
And while we have a sec 2, a lot of the spring sports finalize their schedule on the website as well, athletics.capital.edu. You guys know the drill. Baseball, lacrosse, both men's and women's lacrosse, softball, all finalizing those schedules. So keep an eye on those. We're getting close to the regular season for those sports as well. Lacrosse starting up here in a few weeks, and all the teams will be in Florida for the. I guess Chad's going out there, the assistant SID here. So. It'll be a lot of fun. Keep up to date with the other teams here.
And Benny knocks down another three-pointer. Heidelberg reclaims the lead now, 37-35. Jackson ahead to Hannah, 17:04 remaining. And Hannah has it poked away from him. And now Heidelberg comes up with a steal. Three-pointer on the way. That is no good, but the putback is good for Myron Pruitt. And a timeout desperately needed here for Capital. They will take it. We'll step aside. 16:53 remaining in the second half. Heidelberg 39, Capital 35. You're on your home for Crusaders men's basketball, the Capital Sports Network.
Army ROTC is one of the best leadership courses in the country and can be a part of your college curriculum. As a potential or current student at Capital University, learning to become a leader will make your college experience even richer and prepare you for the future. Capital Army ROTC can provide scholarships and many more benefits to those who enroll, but the biggest benefit will be experienced firsthand after joining. For more information on Capital Army ROTC, testimonials, and an in-depth look at what the program can offer you, go to www.capital.edu/ROTC.
16:53 remaining in the second half. Capital trailing Heidelberg now 39-35. Heidelberg has outscored Capital 11-0 to start the second half.
And all 11 points, Charlie, by Pruitt, Mason, Moxley, and Benny, the four players that we've really been focusing on, struggling in that first half. They all come out and contribute in the first 3 minutes here.
Boy, somebody must have lit a fire under them during halftime, that's for sure. Jackson trying to get it inside. Jamison got fouled. Going to make the shot, but he will now head to the free throw line after the foul against Heidelberg.
It's Moxley's third. Pruitt already on the bench with his third too now, Charlie, so you've got a lot of situations going on in terms of the foul trouble. Like we mentioned, Charlie, a lot of people with 2 fouls. And we've got now Moxley and Pruitt both with 3.
So now Jamison at the foul line. It is up, and it is no good for Tyler. 3 substitutes now coming in for Heidelberg. C.J. Marshall, Michael Davis will be checking in, as well as Andrew Grothaus.
Those are the key guys right now. These guys coming off the bench, the depth guys. Heidelberg's going to have to steal this game, Charlie, with some of their bench players.
Jamison, second free throw is good. You mentioned during the halftime show that Heidelberg's bench outscored Capital's bench 21-9. Basically kept them in the game, if you ask me. Pass on the inside, now outside for 3. That's no good for Marshall, and the rebound dug out by G. Yahaya. Now it's Abel. Abel nearly losing the ball. And now G. He got fouled on the play. Connor Hutchinson knocked him down.
And you see Yahaya in there, and his Hannah kind of struggled in that spurt that he came in. Coach went right back to him. This is a big test of faith right now in Yahaya. He's got to give Coach something here, and I think he's more than capable, obviously. He's going to get the inbound pass here and see if they set something up for him.
Hands back to Abel at the top of the arc. Fresh shot clock for Capital. They go inside the Jamison on the right block. Tyler trying to back his man down. G for 3, and he knocks it down for the top of the arc.
There it is. Told you they go right to him, and they did. When you got a young player like that, you got to get their confidence going, and nothing will do that like a made shot.
Tipped away. Tyrell Jackson with a steal. Tyrell up ahead. G will almost slam it down. Oh, he missed it.
Oh, I was waiting, Charlie. I was out of my seat just waiting and waiting.
It was set up nicely as Grothaus misses the shot. Now there's a loose ball. It's swung around. Schreck will now come up with the loose ball. He'll feed ahead to Abel. Abel, count the bucket and a foul. Abel got upended, almost flipped around by Michael Davis, but somehow, some way, the freshman out of Brecksville, Ohio, gets it to go.
We're getting physical again, Charlie, and that's playing the Capital style right now. And Abel is going to have to come out, I think, after he takes this free throw.
Doesn't look like anything too serious, but yeah, a little rest on the bench might do him well after that big tumble.
The right ankle, I think, is the issue right now. Maybe his right knee.
He already has what looks to be a purple bandage right below his right knee.
Yeah, not sure what the deal is there. Might be
just decorative.
I was going to say might be more aesthetic than functional, but he's definitely hurting on that right ankle. O'Neal's going to come in, I think, after this free throw here.
Kind of like when basketball players wear sleeves.
Mm-hmm. Got to get the shooter sleeve, man.
All popularized by AI, right?
Yeah, right.
And the free throw missed by Abel.
And Abel's going to have to stay in there now, so obviously you'd be wise to go right at him here if you're Marshall.
41-39 lead for Capital. 15-19 remaining in the second half. Davis, right wing. And Jackson is going to be whistled for a reach-in foul.
That's really not a terrible foul. It is his second, but it gets Abel off the floor at least.
Jay O'Neal will now check in for Capital, as Abel will hobble to the bench.
This could be big. If he's out for an extended period here in this half, it's going to be a lot of minutes falling on Jaden O'Neal. And defensively, he's capable, but not really more of a floor general offensive guy like Abel can be.
Rodhouse on the left wing. Over to Michael Davis. Davis will drive on in, and it is put back up and in by Prince Benson. Johnny on the spot. We're not at 41 with 14:57 remaining in regulation.
Benson's got 8 rebounds now after that tip-in, too.
Jackson up top. G throws it down. Oh, my goodness. There's the athletic potential
And
by Yahaya.
once you get the confidence going, Charlie, it's amazing what can happen afterwards.
Missed shot, and now Jamison grabs the rebound. O'Neal will push it ahead. That certainly woke this place up with that dunk.
And Heidelberg's starting five is going to be coming in next possession here, next dead ball.
Shrek. Tough J misses the shot, but looks like he got fouled by Prince Benson, so now he will head to the free throw line.
Heidelberg has now got 3 players with 3 fouls with Benson there. A bunch have, actually 4 now with 3 fouls. Still got a couple with 2. It's turning into that quad overtime game that we saw between the Hawks and Knicks, where I think the Knicks had 3 guys fouled out and basically down to Courtney Lee trying to score all their points.
Shrek misses the first free throw.
The memo did not get passed down there to the Crusaders as both Jamison and Yahaya went for that rebound. Not sure why.
So one more free throw upcoming here for Shrek.
And the ref is talking to Yahaya. I don't know if it was about the dunk or what they're talking about. It looked like he was sharing a story, though, with him.
Mason and Pruitt.
And it's been a while since we've had one of those dunks, too, Charlie. We talked about how we need something to inject some life into this team, and I think that little stretch might help.
Shrek makes the free throw.
Especially individually, just for G. We talked about the struggles he has. He comes off. They bring in Hannah before him. Then he comes in because Hannah struggles in that spot. Knocks down a 3, misses a dunk, comes right back to him in transition, throws down another one.
And hopefully that does a lot for his confidence going forward, as the ball will go out of bounds and Heidelberg will turn it over.
And I'm just keeping an eye on him as well, Charlie, away from the ball. It just looks a lot more confident defensively in what he's doing as well, and good to see Abel coming back onto the floor.
Jane O'Neal will take a seat for Capital. 44-41 lead for Capital. 14:04 remaining in the second half.
And just the way a player moves on the court, you can see if something's off. And it looks like something has clicked back in the right direction now for Yahaya.
Shrek over to Jamison. Jamison to Abel. Abel near the top of the arc. Now he'll dribble backwards towards half court. He's on the right wing now with 10 on the shot clock. Dan over to Shrek inside. Jamison goes up and in, misses the shot, but Yahaya with the board. 3-pointer, no good for Abel. Jamison trying for an offensive board, but it's eventually corralled by Heidelberg's Myron Pruitt. 44-41 lead still for Capital. And Kier missing the 3-pointer as Benny misses it. They could have tied the game right there. And now, after the rebound by G. Yahaya, it is handed gently to the point guard, Dan Abel. Abel, if he isn't the freshman player of the year, he'll certainly be on the freshman team. I guarantee you that for the OAC this year.
I'm right there with you.
Tyrell Jackson to Shrek on the inside, batted up in the air, loose ball. G trying to go for it. Unfortunately, it went off of his hands, out of bounds.
Coach Goodwin upset. I'm not sure at who. G really didn't have a chance to get that ball. I don't know who he's more frustrated with there between Shrek on the entry and Yahaya there, the two of them talking that out. That's a tough pass. I think it's just good defense.
There have been a lot of tough passes by Capital.
Obviously, every possession huge in this game. We haven't really had either team burst out to a huge lead, especially in the second half. No team has had a larger lead than 6 here in this half.
Dribble on the inside. Abel comes up with a steal. He'll feed it ahead. Weingartner up ahead, and he finishes with the right hand.
He is quick to get down the floor when there's a turnover like that. Usually good at finishing around the rim.
Moxley, top of the arc.
It's his first points of the night, actually, Charlie, for Weingartner there.
Over to Collins. Boy, it has been a quiet night for Joey. Ball goes up and in for Myron Pruitt. Meanwhile, cutting the Capital lead to 3, 46-43, 12-20 remaining in regulation. Abel, he'll feed it ahead to Weingartner. Weingartner, he had Jamison wide open in the post. Instead, tough turnaround, Jay. Tip in, however, is good for Tyler Jamison.
I'm with you, though. He missed that entry pass, I think, too, Charlie.
48-43 now for Capital. 12:03 remaining in regulation. He'll now bounce inside to Myron Pruitt. 3-pointer on the way. That is no good for Collins, but the offensive board taken by Heidelberg. Near steal, and the rebound, and the putback is good for D. Avery Collins.
And just unable to come up with that rebound cleanly. Both Jamison and Yahaya go after it. And it leaves a free man in the post, unfortunately. Just a bad break. Nothing you can do about it.
Jackson to Abel now. Dan just standing still as he's trying to direct traffic. Jamison now on the left wing, hands off to Tyrell. Now in the hands of G. 15 on the shot clock. Big line change coming up here for Heidelberg, but we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. G trying to spin around meanwhile, over to Jamison. Jamison trying to go baseline, trying to behind the back pass of some sort, but another turnover as Heidelberg comes up with a loose ball. Ill-advised pass for Jamison. On the other end, a jumper made by Chris Moxley. 48-47 lead for Capital.
Probably could have called a kick. It did hit off the back of the foot of Mason in the post. And looks like a rolling timeout here, substitution timeout for Heidelberg.
Boy, remember all those rolling timeouts used by John Carroll?
Sure do. Capital at least getting an opportunity to match up, and that's something that you talked about with Coach Golson after the game and why we saw so many delays when John Carroll was making those substitutions. It was a bit more strategic than we had thought, Charlie.
Yep. That's just the way the Blue Streaks operate, at least on the men's side. I don't know if they use the same strategy for the women's.
Yeah, we'll see. That's the last game of the year, actually. It's going to be senior night. The lone senior, of course, Colleen Fondesi.
Weingartner, getting over to Abel. Mini press here for Heidelberg. Abel double teamed, and a foul is going to be called against Heidelberg.
They're not catching any kind of break here, Charlie, on these fouls. We saw the one that was probably a steal that they called a foul back in the first half, and there seems to be a lot of fouls being called against the Berg, and now one away from the bonus.
Yes, 6 fouls for Heidelberg this half as opposed to only 3 for Capital. 10:56 remain in the second half. Capital 48, Heidelberg 47. Tyrell Jackson, he's situated on the left wing for right now, trying to dribble forward, back out to Boone. Boone will now pass off to Weingartner. 18 on the shot clock for Joey. He's on the right wing. Joey trying to create some space. Now over to Cox. Cox trying to dribble on inside, and now let's see what the call is here. Whistle and a jump ball. They're going to give it to Heidelberg.
That could have been any one of 3 things. Could have been a travel, probably. Could have been a foul. And they call it the jump ball there.
They opened door number 3.
Yeah, I was really eagerly waiting to see what the call would be there. While we have a second quick update, Heidelberg 42, Capital 34. That's the score at half of the women's game. A big second quarter for Heidelberg. They outscored the Crusaders 22-12 in that frame.
We talked about how the month of February is going to be big for the men's team. Jimmy, same with the women's team.
Yeah, they're chasing down the 4 seed right now, so every game really important for both of these two teams here as we head through February. Probably could say that about every school, Charlie.
Benson over to Marshall. Marshall missing the shot, and Jamison grabbing the rebound for Capital. Here comes Schreck on the offensive side. He'll now dribble out of trouble. Schreck, near midcourt, passing off to Jamison. Jamison looking for some help. Abel was swarmed. Abel, pass outside. Weingartner for 3. Joey not able to knock it down. Rebound taken by Heidelberg's C.J. Marshall. Marshall will feed it ahead. Back outside to Grothaus. Now in the hands of Marshall. Marshall over to Davis. Davis, kick out. 3-pointer. But
the line?
Somebody stepped out of bounds, and they're going to say Grothaus did just that.
So he was standing out of bounds when he spotted up for 3 there. There's a lot more room, too, on the baseline. It's like the NBA where sometimes it's amazing how they can even fit their foot between the out-of-bounds line and the three-point line. On that corner, it gets pretty tight down there.
Nate Boone over to Schreck.
Got plenty more room in the NCAA level.
Schreck trying to get it across half court. Does so. Over to Nate Boone. Boone, pump fake, and let's see here, jump ball is going to be called. Almost had his pocket picked by C.J. Marshall.
Well, he got Benson fooled, though. Benson was up out of the air, exactly what he was trying to do. Didn't feel Marshall below him. Marshall just walks right in and goes after the ball.
So now Abel trying to get it in. We'll get it into Jamison, but another turnover. This time Grothaus pokes it away. Marshall back outside, swung around to Grothaus. Grothaus will try to take it on in, but Weingartner swats it away. Abel ahead to Schreck. Schreck will now pull it out. Back out to Weingartner, now back in the hands of Abel. 48-47 lead for Capital. 9:12 remaining in the second half. Weingartner, right wing, inside of Jamison, near the right block. Tyler trying to back his man down. 3-pointer now for Boone. That's no good on the rebound taken by C.J. Marshall of Heidelberg. Heidelberg with an opportunity to take a lead right here. Davis lost it out of bounds, and they give it back to Capital.
Neither team has scored, Charlie, since 11-10. So over 2 minutes now. We just kind of keep going back and forth here, and Heidelberg just buying time. their starters come back in. Most of them all, besides Collins pretty much and Benny, in foul trouble right now. But they're buying more time, and it's becoming less and less of a factor as we go on through this game. And more importantly, they're staying in this game. They're only down by 1 point, even though the bench really didn't do anything. They didn't let Capital score either.
Jackson inside. Jamison able to hit the bucket with a man flying right by him. 50-47 lead now for Capital. That's the way to break the press. Benny trying to go baseline. Turns it over. Jackson with the steal. Tyrell to Tyler Jamison. And now Jamison, he'll simply take it up the court. Kind of surprised that Heidelberg didn't try to put a little pressure on him, especially with him being a big man. Three-pointer, Abel missing it. But the putback for Schreck, that's no good as well. And the rebound now taken by Chris Moxley of Heidelberg. Moxley ahead of the pack and not able to make the bucket, but he was fouled. He'll go to the free throw line.
Been a fun little game here, Charlie. We've had a few good ones in the last few broadcasts.
Would you agree that there's been an uneven tempo to this game?
Yeah, at times it's deathly slow. At other times it's just run out of the gym. So it's been a nice little mix of tempos and seeing different stretches go different ways. Heidelberg had a nice pace out of the locker room. I think they started on an 11-0 run.
You were correct.
And since then it's been 15-8 in favor of Capital. So Capital did a nice job of withstanding that first punch and punching right back, and got a nice little fight going on.
Moxley misses the first, makes the second. 50-48 lead now for Capital. 8:18 remaining in regulation. Schreck to Jackson. Tyrell will now dribble out of trouble on the right wing. So a 3-point lead here for Capital. Actually, 2-point lead, excuse me. Jackson dribbles in and scores.
That's one bad sequence there from Moxley defensively, but here he goes the other way.
Moxley not able to hit the bucket, but the follow is there for Mike Mason.
That was a good way to get the 2 points back. It kept guarding Jackson like he was going to pass it back towards the top of the key, and Jackson just kept going and going and going.
And Boone loses it. It's a turnover, and Moxley drives on in and scores.
And you talked about the pace. Here it is. This is what the press can do.
Tied at 52 now. Boone. He's double teamed.
It's timeout time.
And
Charlie.
Boone trying to dribble forward, and a foul is called against Heidelberg.
Oh, they got bailed out again.
I think they're going to call against DeAvery Collins, but Boone was basically trapped on the far side of the court because of a double team, but man, I think that's the second or third time that he's been bailed out with a foul call.
Absolutely, Charlie.
So now Boone will head to the free throw line, and once again, like the first half, free throws will play a big role here. That's a 17th foul on Heidelberg, so free throws the rest of the way for Capital, and awaiting Nate Boone, the front end of a 1-and-1. So Boone, the Columbus native, steps to the free throw line. Right-handed shooter. Front end of the 1-and-1 is up and good, so that'll allow him to attempt a second free throw while at the charity stripe. More importantly, it gives Capital a 1-point lead, 53-52, 7:31 left to play in regulation. Second free throw is good for Boone as well. So a 2-point lead for Capital. Boone will check out. G. Yahaya will check back in for Capital.
Remember, Yahaya wasn't even trusted to come into this game after that, after they went to Hannah first, and now Yahaya right back in good graces with Coach after the nice effort he gave in a couple minutes here in this half.
He used the back door of the doghouse. And the shot is missed by Kier Benny. Yahaya ahead and not able to make the layup. Just missed it. Rebound taken by Collins. Back out to Moxley. Moxley, he'll drive. No, Collins actually will drive. Excuse me. Jamison with the rebound. Almost lost it. Abel ahead to G. G up and in with two hands. And a technical is going to be called against G for hanging on the rim, although there was a player right below him.
Myron Pruitt was standing right below him, and they wave it off. That's the right call.
Yeah, that is the right call.
There's no way he was trying to show up anybody there. He just was trying to avoid Pruitt, who was directly under him.
Now, if he had done a chin up and put his legs over the rim, now that would have been different.
He did kind of raise his legs, but if he didn't, he probably would have kicked Pruitt in the face. So, obviously, just trying to avoid the player there. And, unfortunately, it was a huge dunk, and it kind of sucked the momentum right out when they call a technical right away. It did get waved off, but the crowd, you would expect to be much louder right now than they are.
Turnaround Jay. Jameson's going to be called for the foul. He was defending against Myron Pruitt, so now Pruitt will head to the free throw line. 15 foul against Capital this half. Stops the clock with 6:37 remaining in regulation. Capital leading 56-52, but Pruitt, the sophomore out of Cleveland, will have a chance to cut into that Capital lead a little bit. First free throw for Pruitt is up and no good. So one more free throw upcoming for him.
81% free throw shooter.
I'll tell you what, with the form that he exhibited on that last shot, didn't look like an 81% shooter to me.
I was thinking the same thing, Charlie. And as a team right now, Heidelberg dreadful, 6 for 14 at the free throw line, below 50%.
Second free throw, no good. Yeah, that did not look like an 81% free throw shooter.
No.
That might be a typo. Shrek, top of the arc. Dribbling around for Capital. Shrek, the Kentucky native, going over his options. 15 on the shot clock. Jackson on the left wing. Over to Dan Auble. Over to Shrek now. Inside. Jameson not able to lay it up, but he was fouled.
It's the fourth on Benson now.
So now Tyler Jameson, freshman out of Strongsville, Ohio, will head to the free throw line.
And you see Capital kind of taking the air out of the basketball, going back to a slower style in the half-court game, and it's working. They're getting some good looks.
First free throw missed by Jameson, however. Coming back in for Heidelberg will be Connor Hutchinson.
And they really don't have any choice, I guess, with Benson going to the bench.
He's going to have to sit for a while.
And Mason are probably out of the woods right now with his 2 fouls, but they still have 3 on Moxley, 3 on Pruitt to worry about as well.
Second free throw made by Jameson. 57-52 lead now for Capital. 6:10 remaining in the second half. Moxley on the right wing. He'll pass it off to Hutchison. Three-pointer on the way. Kier Benny, boy, he has been off tonight. Misses that three-pointer. Meanwhile, Jackson, jumper from the foul line. Tyrell not able to get the shooter's roll. And the loose ball collected by Heidelberg. Moxley, cross half court. There's a little move on Auble. Now inside. Hutchinson, back outside. In the corner now to Benny. Now over to Moxley. No, excuse me, Collins. Now inside to Moxley. That jumper no good, and Giahaya able to grab it for Capital. Jackson now over to Auble. It looks like Heidelberg has gone away from that full court press.
I'm surprised too, Charlie, based on your tone there. You seemed a little bit surprised, but I mean, you got to kind of push the tempo, I think, because Capital is, again, just kind of sucking the air out of the ball and getting good shots.
G for 3. That's no good. Oof. But Auble with the offensive board.
Stepped out.
Oh, shoot. So now they will give the ball to Heidelberg. Explain that rule for me just for a second, Jimmy. So if a player goes out of bounds, even if he doesn't have the basketball.
Yeah, you're right. Can't come back in and kind of establish, just like you can't run straight out of bounds and come back in to play, try to catch the ball. You kind of have to be forced out, kind of like in the NFL on a punt.
Okay.
But Auble, I mean, it looked like he actually just stepped out when he received the ball on the rebound, and that's what they called.
So if you're pushed out, you're able to reestablish yourself.
Yeah, obviously, yep.
Jumper, no good. Auble with the rebound after the miss by Pruitt.
Don't know if that was blocked or just a bad-looking shot there from Pruitt.
57-52 lead for Capital. 4:50 remaining in the second half. Turnover. Davis the other way. Heidelberg, and it's
goaltending.
Wow, Tyrell Jackson got up there, and boy, I would really like to see the replay of that play. I mean, it looked from here that the ball was going up, but I mean, our referee had a better view of it down there than we did up here.
Might have hit the backboard before he made contact with it too, which
that
is
too. So
the
idea of pinning.
Right. Another idea there. Obviously, you can bang it off the backboard, kind of like LeBron does all the time with the chase down block, but it has to hit your hand before it hits the backboard.
Tyrell thought about a 3 on the left wing. Now back out to Dan Auble. 57-54 lead for Capital. 4.5 to play in regulation. Shrek, top of the arc, over to Tyrell Jackson. Jackson on the right wing, and now they're going to give the ball back to Heidelberg after Giahaya is going to be called for an offensive foul. Must have been an illegal screen or something, and now G will check back out.
I don't really know what the call was there anyway. I would want to get Boone back in, regardless of what happened that last possession. Boone a much more solid player.
3-point lead for Capital as Moxley brings the ball up the floor for the Bird. Dribbling inside, and he makes the shot with the left hand. Had to dribble through some traffic as well. It's now a 1-point lead for Capital. Heidelberg going back to that press. Jackson to Jamison. Jamison gets fouled. And Mike Mason will be whistled for another foul. So now Jamison will head to the free throw line. A little gimpy is Jamison after getting up on the floor, but looks like he'll be able to walk it off.
Seen him make that grimacing face before. He is a very physical player. Just a freshman, too. Talked about the offseason. He's going to be hitting the weight room, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He's going to be bulking up a little bit. Oh.
As the first free throw is no good for Jamison.
Not a good form there either.
You know, obviously we have a lot to look forward to. We have a lot more of this season, you know, a whole month here in February. But, you know, just for a second, looking to the offseason, this freshman class has a chance to be something really, really special. If they put in the work and come back here as sophomores, that is something to really look forward to. Not only for the men's side, but also for the women's side. Second free throw made by Jamison. 2-point lead, 58-56. 3:57 left to play in regulation. Moxley trying to dribble around some traffic. Back outside for three. That's no good for Hutchinson. And the rebound taken by Dan Abel.
Let me tell you, Charlie, I'm sure they're going to slow things. No, maybe not.
Schreck, spin move, almost made the shot. Missed it, but was fouled, so Schreck headed back to the free throw line.
I was trying to wait for a slow period to get there, but Schreck just kind of pushing the pace. Obviously, we're talking about next year a lot, and you do that with a young team, but he seems good enough to compete this year too, Charlie, and we talked about the consistency, and I think this 4-minute stretch right here, this is really important. This is closing out a game. We saw Marietta close out a game in one of the most impressive fashions I've seen. It was a 6-point game with about 2 or 3 minutes left, and I think they ended up winning by 13 or 15 points. So this is where you kind of just pedal to the metal and close this game out right now, and it's important for Capital to pull this thing out and just moving forward, showing that they can do it. So if they find themselves in the tournament in this situation, maybe up by 4 on the road, 4 minutes left, you got to win that ball game. Let's see if they can come away with it today, and that's going to go a long way.
Second free throw made and also a timeout as well. We'll step aside really quickly. 3:42 left to play in regulation. Capital 60, Heidelberg 56 here on the Capital Sports Network.
Dill's Greenhouse is a local family business dedicated to offering the best shopping experience and honest prices for your gardening needs. If you're in need of annuals, perennials, vegetable plants, or any variety of gardening tools and resources, Dill's Greenhouse is more than happy to get you on the right path. Dill's Greenhouse is located at 5800 Rager Road in Groveport, Ohio, and is open 7 days a week. Visit them online for more information at dillsgreenhouse.net. Dill's Greenhouse. Only nature does it better.
Welcome back to the Capital Center. 3:42 left to play in regulation. It's Capital 60, Heidelberg 56. While we have a moment, let's go ahead and get you updated with some scores around the good old Ohio Athletic Conference, and a lot of games are ticking close to the end. Baldwin-Wallace playing host to Ohio Northern, and Ohio Northern has actually come out with a win in that one, 94-76 over the Yellow Jackets. A final right there at Baldwin-Wallace as the Polar Bears get another win in conference play. Meanwhile, John Carroll, oh boy, they blew the smokestacks off of Otterbein tonight. 97-58 was the final in that one.
Oh man.
Muskingum 84-63 over Wilmington with 37 seconds left to play in that one. And finally, Marietta 78, Mount Union 75 with 50 seconds left to play in the second half. Ball will go out of bounds, and they'll give it back to Capital.
That's a long bus ride home, by the way, when you get blown out by 40 to John Carroll.
Yep.
That's a long bus ride back to Westerville. And talking about long bus rides, 65-48 Heidelberg all over Capital right now on the women's side of things.
I'm sure Dixie Jeffers is not too happy right now, as that ball will go out of bounds, and Capital turns it right back over.
Yep, Schreck throws it away there, trying to get it inside to Boone.
Both teams have struggled holding on to the ball, each team with 15 turnovers. 60-56 lead for Capital. 3:20 left to play in regulation. Kier Benny goes inside. Mason is able to make it down there on the block. Now it's a 2-point lead, 60-58, 3:08 left to play. Near turnover, but Abel gets over to Boone. Boone across the timeline, and Boone loses it. Turns it over as Pruitt was able to get the steal. And now a foul is called under the rim as C.J. Marshall was driving towards the hoop.
You said near turnover, Charlie. Nearly went into the basket, too, off of that tip. And I think Yahaya is going to come in for Boone, which gives him a little bit more ball handling.
A wet spot being cleaned on the floor right now, pausing the action momentarily, but now C.J. Marshall, 5'10 sophomore out of, I hope I pronounced this right, Eustis, Florida. That's a long, long trip.
Boy, and they're going to go with the Yahaya here, which means 2 freshmen in the game to close this thing out, or 3 with Jamison as well. And we talked about freshman of the year and things of that nature.
As the foul shots missed.
Between the first and second team, I mean, you got 4 freshmen that are really part of the core here at Capital. Jamison, Boone, Abel, Yahaya, all could be members of that team just because there's not a lot of freshmen that get those kinds of minutes. But the young team with 1 senior out there and a sophomore in Shrek.
Marshall makes the second free throw.
The senior being Jackson, obviously. And this is huge, Charlie. Again, they've got to win this game. You got to close out at home, up by 4 with 4 minutes left to go. It's not looking like smooth sailing at this point.
Tyrell Jackson able to keep the ball from going out of bounds as they get it over to Abel.
Need a bucket here.
17 on the shot clock. Jackson to Jamison at the top of the arc. Now it's over to Shrek. Shrek to G. G thought about a 3. G almost traveled, but gets it over to Tyrell Jackson for 3. Tyrell not able to make it, and the rebound is taken by Kiera Benny. And now Heidelberg has a chance to take a lead here late. They're down by 1, 60-59. 2:20 left to play in the second half. The Berg back with the basketball. Mason looking for some help. Finally gets it over to a guard and C.J. Marshall. 14 on the shot clock. And Marshall was fouled dribbling around by Dan Abel. And let's see here. That'll be the 18th foul on Capital, which means C.J. Marshall's headed to the free throw line here.
Marshall.
Front end of a 1-and-1.
Excuse me there. Marshall 10 for 16 this season, 62%.
Hasn't gotten to the free throw line all that much.
He's 1 for 2 today.
Boy, this could be huge right here.
He's oddly at that 1 point, which you rarely see.
Marshall, lefty. Bounces the ball a couple times. It is up. It is no good, and the rebound taken by Austin Schreck of Capital. Schreck will now feed it ahead to Dan Abel. Capital still sporting a 1-point lead as we approach the 2-minute mark here in regulation. 60-59. Capital sporting that lead. Schreck dribbling to the top of the arc. Jackson, jumper! Not able to make it, but he was fouled. And some real important free throws coming up here for Tyrell.
Now, this is your senior. This is where Tyrell Jackson has to become the leader on this team. Knock down these free throws.
79% free throw shooter on the season. Jackson, right-handed shooter. It is up, and it's in. Holy cow. That hit every single part of the rim.
Hey, he knows how the rims work here. He's been here 4 years.
Oh, yeah.
Put it on that.
He knows the lay of the land, so to speak.
Hopefully this one just goes straight in, though.
Yeah, save us the suspense, Tyrell. Second shot, up and good.
There it is.
This time, much more smooth. 62-59 lead for Capital.
Still 1 possession here. Can't get lax.
Minute 45 left to play in regulation. Over to Benny. Benny for 3, and that is no good. And it bounced over the top of the backboard, which means that Capital will get it back. But now Heidelberg will set up in that pressure defense. Full court press. Schreck will be the trigger man for Capital.
And worth noting, too, Charlie, they have the arrow in their favor.
Fed ahead to G. They were able to break the press. And now Capital will try to run some clock here, but at the same time, they need a good shot, but a steal by Moxley as he wrestles it away from Abel. And now a foul called against Capital. Are they going to call this against G or Abel? Either way, Moxley will be heading to the free throw line, and once again, it'll be a 1-and-1 situation. Oh, man. Of all the times not to turn the ball over, that would be one of them.
Really forced the pass there to Abel, too. And Abel trying to get on the same page with Yahaya there, and Auble gave him a thumbs up.
Moxley, free throw. It's good.
There's growing pains, and he's going to learn from it. Obviously, you don't want him to make the mistake in the first place, but assessing the damage here, you're going to have the lead after this possession still, and he knows not to do that again.
Second free throw made by Moxley. It's a 1-point lead for Capital, 62-61 in favor of the Crusaders. Minute and a half to play. Schreck will get it into G. Now it's back to Schreck. Schreck trying to break the press here, and he does so. Racing up the floor. Now he'll hand off to Dan Auble. 18 on the shot clock. Auble to Schreck on the right wing. Schreck inside. Auble able to get free and make the layup.
Moxley just completely lost him there, but Moxley quickly the other way now.
Capital up by 3, 64-61. A minute remaining in regulation. Kier Benny passing it back out to Moxley. Moxley trying to spin away from trouble. Now over to Davis. And now it's tipped away. And Schreck comes up with it for Capital. And he'll lay it up and in. 66-61 lead for Capital. 45 seconds remaining. The timeout not called by Heidelberg. 3 for Benny. That's no good. But the rebound taken by Heidelberg. Now a loose ball. Now it's back out to Davis for 3. That's no good. Rebound by Dan Auble of Capital. Under 30 seconds to play.
Got a foul.
And Jackson will be fouled by Heidelberg's Prince Benson, and that should foul him out of the game, I think.
Yep, you're correct, Charlie. So he'll come out. Got a foul, though. There's nothing he could do about it.
So now Tyrell Jackson will head to the free throw line.
Boy, those were some deep threes that they were pulling.
Yep.
Davis was all the way on the C on the Capital lettering on the court. It was way out there.
So now Jackson getting set to step to the free throw line and hopefully putting the finishing touches on.
Yeah, 2 here makes it a 3-possession game, so 26 seconds left. You'd have to feel pretty good about where you'd stand there.
Jackson receives the basketball. Shot is up and good for Tyrell. That makes it a 6-point lead. 67-61, and now a timeout is going to be taken. Well, while we have a moment, folks, please be sure to stick around after tonight's game for the Peking Dynasty postgame show. Final stats from this game. We'll have a talk with Coach Damon Goodwin after tonight's game. Name tonight's player of the game. Get you updated with scores around the Ohio Athletic Conference. A little bit of everything on the postgame show. That being the Peking Dynasty postgame show following the conclusion of this game. 67-61 lead for Capital. 26.3 seconds to go in regulation. 10-plus fouls for Heidelberg, 9 fouls for Capital, and the possession arrow is in favor of the Crusaders. Crusaders tonight, they've gotten offensive contributions up and down the lineup. Tyrell Jackson leading the Crusaders in scoring with 13. Austin Schreck with 11. Tyler Jamison with 10. The only double-digit scorer for Heidelberg tonight, that being Chris Moxley, who's got 16.
Kier Benny with just 7. Pruitt with 4. Mason with 6. Collins had just 2. Obviously, we still got 26.3 seconds to go.
But the starting lineup for Heidelberg just flat didn't get it done tonight.
It was an off night for sure. And Capital was the better team tonight. No question about it. And like I said, Charlie, we'll see if Heidelberg could steal the game was what I believe the words I said about half an hour ago. And, boy, they almost did. They were down by just 2 here. About 3 minutes left to go. And we talked about how important it was for Capital to close this thing out. Sure, they made mistakes here in the last few minutes here, but it's different. You can't practice this situation. You can try to set that scenario, but it's not the same intensity in practice as much as you want it to be. You only really get that adrenaline in a game kind of situation. So it's really good that they had this game against Heidelberg, maybe not against a Marietta right now. This is a nice little dry run here against Heidelberg instead.
Jackson makes a free throw. Shot clock turned off. Kier Benny will swoop on in and score. 18.5 seconds to go. 68-63. Capital with the lead. Schreck trying to get it in, gets it into Jamison, and Jamison is immediately fouled by Myron Pruitt.
He's got to turn his head. Jeez, you can see all alone over here, no one near him.
Well, he could have just kind of floated it up over his head.
Yeah, didn't he? Really didn't even need to look, I guess. Just turn around and chuck it over your head backwards.
Hey, G, see if you can catch this one.
I'm sure Coach would love that pass.
Oh, man, with all the turnovers he's seen tonight, oh, boy, that might have been the final straw for Goodwin. As Jamison knocks down the first free throw.
He about lost it. When Yahaya threw that pass to Abel, he was pacing, looked at the bench, looked at G, looked at the bench, and he stuck with him. And I think that's the right move. I mean, obviously you can be impulsive there and pull him out, and what is that going to do for him, though? It's going to destroy G's confidence.
Yeah.
You got to show that you got some faith in him. He did, and G went out there and made some more plays for him. So, obviously, you got to respect the decision there.
Two-possession game here. Capital leading Heidelberg 69-63.
Heidelberg, sorry, Charlie, to cut you off there, 19% from three tonight.
Ooh.
4 for 21.
That's been another Achilles heel for them.
Capital not much better at 3 for 14, but, man, 19% from outside. That is a big difference in this game here. And a lot of that from the starting lineup. Kier Benny, 2 for 8 from out there. Collins was 0 for 4, and that's the bulk of it, 2 for 12 right there.
And by the way, how about the game tonight by Tyler Jamison? 11 points, 12 rebounds. He's had to grab a lot of key rebounds for Capital.
He had
tonight.
a monster game against them last time, too, 15 points. I believe he had a double as well. And they just don't have an answer for Tyler Jamison. And Mike Mason was supposed to be that, and Mason, granted, did play well when he was on the court, but the foul situation kept him out of this game. Prince Benson gave a great effort off the bench, had 8 rebounds and 2 points, but obviously just not the firepower down low that they have with Jamison. Jamison's offensive game has come a long way this season as well, and he's got a couple more games here to fine-tune it before he goes up against the big boys.
Jamison, meanwhile, will step to the free throw line looking to put this game on ice.
You think about when Capitals had its glory years here, and the post player has always been that big position for them.
And the free throw is good for Jamison, 70-63. Kick to the corner, three-pointer. That's no good for Grothaus. And now a jump ball is going to be called with 8 seconds remaining. G was fighting for it that time for Capital. And they are going to, well, they should give it to Capital as.
No, I believe it should stay here, actually.
Okay. I kind of got confused a little bit because both possession arrows are lit
yeah,
up.
that light is not, it's kind of broken from our pen. That light is the bonus light, actually. That's what's going on.
Okay,
got it. It does look really confusing.
Yeah.
I can see why you're confused there. But, yeah, it definitely stays with Heidelberg there. There's a bright white light underneath the home, and that's what Charlie saw there.
Yeah. And so now both teams have taken a timeout here as, boy, Giaia was kind of.
Yeah, he's grabbing at his right shoulder.
Well, and also he was stepping gingerly towards the bench. I hope he's okay. 8 seconds remain. Capital 70, Heidelberg 63, assuming that Capital is able to hold on and win this game. That would improve their conference record to 6-7. Overall record to 11-9. If Heidelberg takes the loss tonight, they drop to 9-11 and 5-8 in conference play.
This weekend's going to be a big test for them on the road at Marietta.
Oh boy.
Do I have that correct? I do have that correct.
Yep.
Just making sure.
And then they followed that game up with an affair against Mount Union.
It actually is flipped. It is Mount Union on Saturday, Marietta Wednesday.
You got your M's mixed up.
Yeah, I did. And they're purple and dark blue, and it seems like every team in this conference is one of those two colors. Capital, by the way, on the women's side, it's not looking much better as time has gone on. 73-54 Heidelberg.
Boy, who's had the big game for Heidelberg tonight in that one?
Looking at the individuals, 22 points from Marissa Liberti.
Yeah,
9 of 13 shooting. Carly Patrick has 13. Jackson and Duvall each with 11.
Boy, Heidelberg filling up the stat sheet on the
Sure
women's side. Three-pointer for Kier Benny. Off. Dan Abel grabs the rebound, and that will be that. A nice, tough, gritty win for Capital tonight as the men's team is able to triumph over Heidelberg and Bexley this evening by a final of 70-63. When we come back, we'll have the Peking Dynasty postgame show for you as we put a bow on this one. Again, Capital with a 70-63 win over Heidelberg. You've been listening to men's basketball here on your home for Crusaders men's basketball, Capital Sports Network.
OSU Sports Medicine is a proud supporter of Crusader student-athletes by providing sports health services for Capital University athletics and student health services. Through the work and care of team physicians and athletic trainers, it's the team behind your team. For all fans, if you're looking to improve your physical performance, recover from an injury, or stay active for a lifetime, the experts at Ohio State Sports Medicine are there for you. Visit sportsmedicine.osu.edu or call 366-4332.
When looking for great food at low price, be sure to visit Peking Dynasty on the corner of Livingston and Sheridan right near the Capital University campus. Peking Dynasty has a large selection of Chinese food and sushi, along with great-tasting chicken and beef selections that can please any appetite. In addition, Capital University students receive discounts with a valid ID any day of the week. That's Peking Dynasty on the corner of Livingston and Sheridan right near the Capital campus, where we are proud to say, Go Cap!
Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Peking Dynasty postgame show. Alongside Jimmy Bloomfield, I'm Charlie Danis. Happy result to report from Bexley tonight as the men's team for Capital triumphs over Heidelberg 70-63. In just a second, we will be taking a look at our final stats. Those are brought to you by the CU Society of Sports Management. And as I say that, they have just been brought to us. Thank you very much, kind sir.
I thought that was Coach.
Let's start with Heidelberg. Yeah, I thought so too. Let's start with Heidelberg. Chris Moxley led the way for the Berg in scoring with 16 points on 6 of 11 shooting from the field. 4 points for Myron Pruitt, 6 points for Mike Mason. Quiet night for Kier Benny as he only totaled 9 points on 3 of 12 shooting. 2 points for DeAvery Collins, 2 points for Prince Benson, 1 point for CJ Marshall, 9 points for Michael Davis, 4 points for Andrew Grothaus, 2 points each for Malik Quisenberry and Alex Arlano, and 6 points for Connor Hutchinson. For the game, Heidelberg shot 37% from the field, only 4 of 23 from three-point range, only good for 17% from downtown. And Heidelberg also shot 9 of 20 from the foul line, good for 45%. Meanwhile, for Capital, 3 players scoring in double figures tonight. They were led offensively by Tyler Jamison. Went a double-double, 12 points, 12 rebounds, shot 3 of 5 from the field, and 6 of 10 from the foul line. 6 points for Nate Boone, 11 points for Austin Schreck to go along with 7 rebounds. 9 points and 6 rebounds for Dan Abel, also had 4 assists in this game tonight. 14 points for Tyrell Jackson. Tyrell Jackson was the leading scorer. He had 14 points. Dummy, 14 is more than 12. 3 points for Will Hanna, 7 points for G. Yahaya, 2 points for Joey Weingartner, and 6 points for Caleb Cox. Crusaders shot 38% from the field, only 3 of 14 from three-point range, good for 21.4%. And they went 25 of 35 from the free throw line, did Capital, 71.4% from the foul line. Jimmy, statistics that stood out to you?
Well, actually, we'll get my thoughts in a second. Coach just stepped in again on us, so
gotcha.
Let's get his thoughts on the statistics first.
Post-game coach interview brought to you by the Capital ROTC. Now joined by Coach Damon Goodwin. And, Coach, boy, looking back at this game, tough, gritty win. I know a lot of times it looked ugly, but your team gets a win that it needed.
We did. We needed a win, and we had 18 turnovers. We looked like a bunch of clowns out there sometimes offensively, but defensively we held them to 63 points. And when you can do that, you give yourself a chance to win no matter what you do offensively. So I was proud of our defensive effort for the most part, and we just need to get better offensively.
Nice game for Tyler Jamison, 12 points and 12 rebounds, a little bit of a bounce-back game for Tyler.
Yeah, he's turning into one of our most valuable players. You know, he is certainly a presence in the middle. He also had 3 blocks and probably changed as many as 4 or 5 shots as well. So he's been a real solid player for us in the middle, and we need him to continue working that way.
14 points as well for Tyrell Jackson. I think he kind of turned a corner a little bit. How do you assess his play tonight?
I thought it was okay. I thought during the first part of the game he was lost like the rest of our guys. You know, we substitute 5 guys with a couple minutes into the game. We just, we haven't been shooting it well. We haven't been playing well, but, we grinded out a win today, and we're going to move forward.
G. Yahaya has 7 points and 7 rebounds. It looks as though he's hit a little bit of a freshman wall. Some good moments with a couple of dunks in this game. You're going to have to take the good with the bad with a young guy like that, right?
Yeah, we're playing 5 freshmen, so a lot of that stuff is going to happen. I do think physically they're getting worn out. I think we're going to take tomorrow off and, kind of recover a little bit. Hopefully we'll be fresh on Saturday.
And speaking of Saturday, you're on the road at Mount Union. Boy, the OAC it can be a meat grinder, Coach.
It is. The league this year is probably as level as it's ever been. I don't think there's any team that's extremely poor. I don't think we've got a great team like we've had in the past. I think we've got some very solid teams at the top, but almost anybody can beat anybody on a given night, and we just need to keep grinding through this.
All right, Coach. Well, congrats on the win, and thanks for joining
Thank
us.
you.
Head Coach Damon Goodwin joined us here on the Peking Dynasty post-game show. Again, our post-game coach interview brought to you by the Capital ROTC as Capital triumphs over Heidelberg by a final of 70-63. Now, back in the broadcast booth with me, Jimmy Bloomfield. All right, Jimmy, before we were kind of interrupted by Coach a little bit, some statistics that stood out to you tonight.
Yeah, the three-point shooting, both teams really not good at all. I thought Capital had a chance to really take advantage of the three-point line in this game, but they didn't really do much with it at all. Game in and game out, they're getting 20-plus minutes a night, and we're starting to get more of that core as time goes on. Obviously, Coach kind of sent the message to the starters as well early in this game by just taking them all out 2 minutes into the game because he didn't like the way they came out. I think the first half was huge in this game, 35-28. I think they could have had a bigger lead going into the halftime locker room as well, but they did take a lead into the locker room, which is kind of a different story for us. And they got an 11-0 run, and Heidelberg did to start off that second half, and Capital was still able to make it a 35-35 game. So I'm not looking at the exact specific individual statistics. I'm kind of looking at the flow of this game and the fact that Capital was able to withstand some runs from Heidelberg. And in the last minutes, it was a 2-point game with 3:42 left to go, I believe. Don't have the play-by-play in front of me, but I believe there was that much time left, and we ended up winning this game by 7. Kind of shows you, again, how to close out a game. It was huge that they're able to do this because you can't practice this situation, something I talked about during the game. This is not something you can just set up and go, all right, guys, this team's up by 2. Let's scrimmage. We got 3 minutes left to go. Let's do this. It's not something you do in practice. You can only really get this kind of experience in a game. So it's good that it came at home. It's good that it came against Heidelberg, and they get the win. So obviously you're going to build on this one and kind of a murder stretch now the next 2 games. Maybe steal one.
Let's now go ahead and name tonight's player of the game, brought to you by Donato's Pizza. Let's go ahead and give it to Tyler Jamison. He had a big night scoring-wise and rebounding-wise.
I agree. 12 points, 12 rebounds, the double-double, 3 blocks as well. We talked about his interior defense being a big part of this Capital team, and Heidelberg shot just 34% from the field in this game, and a lot of that is because of Tyler. Like Coach said, even if he didn't block a shot, he altered several. And that's not something that you really keep track of, but he doesn't really get the glamour for it, but obviously grinding on the defensive end, and we're really proud of where his offensive game has become. I think speaking for both of us there, Charlie, he's got, again, a couple more games here to groom it. They're going to need him in a big-time fashion here come the end of this month.
One more time with the OAC scoreboard update, brought to you by Jersey Mike's Subs and Sandwiches. Some finals on the men's side for the OAC. Ohio Northern beats up Baldwin-Wallace 94-76. John Carroll blows out Otterbein 97-58. Continuing with the blowout theme, Muskingum all over Wilmington 84-65. And this game was actually relatively close. Marietta with an 82-75 victory over Otterbein this evening. Meanwhile, well, this game is just about to be over, and it will be a 76-63 loss for the women's team for Capital. Heidelberg getting contributions up and down their offensive lineup. They were led offensively by Marissa Liberty, who had 22 points. Also had 3 other players tally points in double figures. Leading scorer for Capital on the night was Chelsea Pla, who ends up having 11 points. Annika Watchman also with double figures in points. She had 10 tonight for the Crusaders. Other scores around the OAC. A minute 5 remaining in the fourth quarter at Heidelberg. The Student Princes, actually I just read that score. Fourth quarter at Ohio Northern. 3:06 remaining in the fourth quarter at Ohio Northern. The Polar Bears leading Baldwin-Wallace in that one 56-39. They are in overtime at Wilmington. Tied at 63 between the Quakers and the Muskies. 4:29 left to play in overtime in that game. And meanwhile, Marietta, they lead Mount Union 67-54. 4:52 remain in the fourth quarter of that one. And finally, it is Otterbein leading John Carroll 65-52. Got about 2 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter of that game. So, our next broadcast will be on Saturday. The women's team will be playing host to Mount Union. The men's team, meanwhile, will be on the road at Mount Union. The men's team will tip off at 2 o'clock. The women's team will tip off at 3 o'clock here at the Capitol Center. Jimmy, you won't be here for that game on Saturday. I'm going to have to be riding solo on that afternoon, but another tough loss for the women's team here. So what do they have to do to get a win against Mountain Union this weekend?
I mean, it's the same old story again with this team now, too. Consistency has been a big problem for the women's team. Annika Watchman has been the spark plug, and she's kind of, as she goes, we go, kind of like Dexter Fowler with the Cubs, to quote some of the Cubs there. But she's kind of the person that everyone's kind of leaning on, and it's nice to see some contributions from Chelsea Pla, but when she's at the top of the scoreboard as well, that means some other players not contributing, and it's kind of the same old story again, where someone has a big game and then everyone else kind of doesn't. And I'm waiting for Colleen Fondesy to still have that breakout. She's a player that we were really leaning on going into the season, was a big part of last year's team, being a senior now this year. Really expected her to take another step to her game, Aaron Reisner as well, and those are some players we're still missing those contributions from, Charlie. So it's going to be interesting. I think these last few games here for the Crusaders, they're starting to fall back now in the standings again, and these are the teams they need to beat again because Marietta's right there with them, Mount Union's right there with them. These are teams that they're going to be battling for that 4th spot with. If not, I mean, even if they start losing a lot of these games, we're going to stop talking about the 4th seed and start talking about making the tournament because John Carroll's down there below them, but that's a very talented team that's in the 9th and 10th spot as well. So they're going to make a move, too. They've got the best player in the conference by far in Caitlin Spahar. They're going to make their move, too. So Capital, they got to start making their move. It starts with home games, Charlie. That's something we talked about, too, in the start of the year. Losing all those home games, they put themselves in a big hole. They don't have a whole lot of home games left throughout this stretch. They need to get some wins here at home.
With the win tonight, the men's team for Capital improves to 11-9 overall and 6-7 within OAC play. With the loss, Heidelberg drops to 9-11 overall and 5-8 within OAC play. For my broadcast partner, Jimmy Bloomfield, this is Charlie Danis saying one final time. The final score tonight from the Capitol Center, Capital 70, Heidelberg 63. We will see you on Saturday afternoon when the women's team plays host to the Purple Raiders of Mount Union beginning at 3 o'clock. Until then, everybody, so long.